Barrigan didn't die like everyone thought? He survived through his crown, and fell into the elemental countries before being found by the Shodaime Hokage only to be sealed away out of fear. Many years later, Naruto finds the crown in the forbidden scroll of sealing, and puts it on, with interesting results. Baragan Laos and Baron howled in anger at his soon-to-be impending death. Ironic really, since he always considered himself the true embodiment of the word and was now dying due to his own power being used against him. What infuriated him even further was the fact he had failed to kill Sasuke and get his revenge on the rogue Shinigami for what the arrogant being did all those years ago in usurping the Hollow King's throne. In an act of desperation, the former ruler of Hueco Mundo launched his weapon at Aizen, only for the man to turn his head with that arrogant smirk on his face, and watch the weapon be destroyed. Whether by Aizen himself or Barragan's own power was unknown. With his skull decaying, the former Hollow King felt his life ending, his last form of consciousness retreating into his crown, it falling from the sky to the ground below, and knew the last part of him would shatter upon impact. However, just mere seconds from the event, a ripple in space and time appeared around that area, much to the shock of everyone seeing it, even Aizen. But just as it quickly happened, the ripple was gone, and the phenomenon was just a small footnote in the history of this ongoing war between the two warring sides. Elsewhere, the golden crown of the Hollow King fell through the dimensional rip, the pathway from one dimension to the next in a nexus filled with infinite possibilities and outcomes that would baffle any mind. The source of the ripple was the dimension that the crown was heading to now, with a violent battle being held in a place where 3 people and a large 9-tailed creature with incredible power were fighting. The amount of energy being generated by the creature, its summoner, and the two opposing them had shook the very ground around them. On one side was Uchiha Madara, founder of the Uchiha clan, master of the Sharingan, former shinobi of Konoha, and commander of the Kyuubi no Kitsune. On the other side was Senju Hashirama, who was the founder of the Senju clan, master of the Makuten bloodline, and the Shodaime Hokage of Konoha. Beside him was his wife Uzumaki Mito, who was from the Uzumaki clan, and a distant relative of the Senju and Uchiha clan due to them being related to their great ancestor that was the Sage of 6 Paths. At the point in time when the ripple effect opened above the warring parties, Uchiha Madara had seen the events above, his concentration on the fighting being lost in the moment, which cost him losing his control over Kyuubi thanks to Senju's own power to calm the great Bijou long enough for Mito to seal it into her body, using the unmatched mastery in the way of sealing. Shortly after that occurred, Madara was slain by Hashirama. Or rather, it was believed the man had been slain after the battle had ended along with the Uchiha's life. While no body was found after the fight was over, it was presumed that the man's body had washed away with the water, and sunk into the depths of the darkness to never be seen again. As for the Hollow King's golden crown, it had transformed into a wild bone-like version of its once regal form, and floated over near Hashirama's feet. Frowning, the tired Senju clan leader and Hokage of Konoha picked up the item in question before showing it to his wife. Curious, "What is it?" asked Mito while examining the bone-like crown cautiously. "I don't know, Mito-chan, but it did not belong to Madara. Whatever it is, I sense death within its very structure, and could be a danger to anyone holding it for too long. We should seal it away in the forbidden scroll of sealing, my brother, and I have created to ensure such a thing isn't touched by anyone else," answered Hashirama, with sealing it away, and walked with his wife away for the soon-to-be-named Valley of the End. "It's really that dangerous?" asked Mito with her husband nodding. "Whatever I sensed in that crown was a shadow of its true power, but what was there within felt like I had touched a piece of the Shinigami himself. If someone were to restore its power back and learn to control it, the results would be devastating in the wrong hands," answered Hashirama, with Mito nodding. "Shouldn't we try to destroy it then? If it is that dangerous, perhaps sealing it away is not the best course of action should your successor not be so honorable," stated Mito with her husband. "Long it has been since I found it. So for the love of Kami, do not put this crown on, or try to harness its power for your own gain. It will most likely kill you." Signed, Senju Hashirama, Shodaime Hokage. "So this thing can't possibly kill people if used," said Naruto while staring at the seemingly harmless thing in front of him. In all honesty, part of Naruto longed for death, and that same part of him whispered to put it on. To be free of Konoha, its cruelty aimed at him, its hatred aimed at him, and at his very existence. Who were they to judge him? What right did they have to hate him? What possible reason did they have that the Sandaime Hokage wouldn't tell him? It didn't matter to Naruto, as the whisper in his head grew louder the more he stared at the crown, and the desire to do something about his life for once that could not be controlled by that of outside forces which would no doubt wish to punish him physically or otherwise later for using this, apparently dangerous item. How could they punish him for his actions if he was dead? Raise the boy from the grave, and make him their servant. Ha! To hell with them and to hell with life. Reaching for the item, Naruto picked up the crown, it almost shining in the moonlight of the clear night sky, as if it belonged in an environment eerily similar to this one, and he could almost feel the power coursing through it. He could feel a pull of his chakra now entering the crown. Its sleek shine, despite being made of bone, made it almost glow. And the call to where the object grew to the point where Naruto could no longer ignore the ever-suicidal desire to put it on his head. Embracing what would no doubt be his death, Naruto did just that, and put the crown on his head. And that was when everything went to hell. It was also around that time that Iruka and Mizuki showed up. One moved to stop Naruto, and the other moved to secretly kill him along with Iruka to further cover up his plans for the Forbidden Scroll. No sooner had Naruto put the crown on his head did the object begin to glow pure white, and an invisible pressure covered everything for miles, both within Konoha, and many miles well beyond the village's walls that awoke practically everyone in the village, from old to young, from civilian to shinobi, from dog to cat to bug, and basically put the entire village on full alert, not seen since the Kyuubi attack 12 years ago. Many if not all the adults in Konoha believed this was an attack by the fox itself, that the brat they all hated finally showing his true colors after deceiving the Hokage for so long, and had somehow remembered how to use its demonic power before unleashing it on the village. Such thoughts were further strengthened when a large spire of energy erupted from the forest region, a howl of something inhuman echoing into the night sky, scaring away all manner of creatures in the general area. All of them too fearful to face this entity they knew from instinct alone would kill them if caught in its line of sight, simply because it could kill them. The only creatures not fleeing from the impending source of terrifying power was that of the human beings dressed for battle in full shinobi outfits, from Jounin to Anbu to the Hokage himself. The old man was joined by Hamura and Kaharu along with Danzo, with several shinobi that the Hokage knew were once in the other man's root program, and therefore their loyalty was not to the Hokage, not fully anyway, not unless Danzo was made Hokage. In any case, this threat concerned the entire village, and the Tsunade Hokage knew that Danzo wouldn't dare try anything when Konoha was at risk of falling with no one being left alive. What good was a Hokage if the only one in the village was the Hokage? You could order yourself around, but that would just be crazy and stupid all rolled into one. I warned you about the Kyuubi Jinchuriki, and how it should be watched more carefully, Sarutobi, remarked Danzo, with Hamura and Kaharu nodding in agreement. Like you would have done if I let you have your way, Danzo. Jinchuriki need emotions for them, and the seal to function properly. You would deprive the boy of both, and doom us all, Danzo. And don't anyone here would dare call my former sensei and his wife a lair, countered Hiruzen with a look, while neither of his two former teammates saying anything, and Danzo wisely kept his mouth shut too. In any case, should the boy survive this treasonous action with the demon still inside his body, I move he be locked away until a proper time, when we can use him to produce new potential Jinchuriki to hold Kyuubi and mold it into a proper weapon. As you yourself just said, Sarutobi, only in Uzumaki can hold the most powerful of the Bijou, stated Danzo with Hiruzen grimace, while Hamura and Kaharu nodded in agreement, knowing the rest of those on the councils, along with clan heads, would agree to this. They tried the Hokage's approach to things, now he would try theirs. When they arrived at the massive spiraling tower of energy, they saw Iruka and Mizuki watching this whole thing in fear. Before the Hokage could demand answers from either man, the tower of energy began to thin, condense, and retract downward from where it had exploded out of when everything first happened. When the energy died down enough for them to see clearly, everyone in the clearing, armed with weapons and ready to use jutsus, were shocked to see Uzumaki Naruto floating slightly off the ground before his sandaled feet touched grass beneath him. What shocked them everyone the most was the change in Naruto's attire, hair, and overall appearance that was not like the boy they knew. Naruto's clothing was almost all white with hints of black lines with fur along the short-sleeved shirt he was now wearing. It had a regal look, the boy's appearance, and any experienced tailor could tell you was no doubt made from very expensive cloth. They also noticed that the boy was also wearing thick golden wristbands on each of his wrists, and a belt which consists of 3 thick chains attached to a large metal disc with the sun emblem on it. In his right hand was the top of a metallic cane colored in the blackest of black, with the top having the skulled face of a fox with haunting ruby eyes that almost glowed eerily in the moonlight. As for the boy's body, it was much taller than what he had been earlier, but rather rivaled the height of the tallest boy in Naruto's class, that was a Burame Shino, and well muscular for a boy his age. Much different from the skinny, almost malnourished boy that would have to gorge on ramen daily just to have some manner of body weight. But what could have been the most shocking thing they saw was the boy's face and hair were not what they recalled when looking at Naruto. The boy's hair was no longer spiky blonde, but rather spiky red, with the crown made of bone sitting proudly on his head, and the boy's face showed scars along his face. One was coming down the right eye with another one on the left side of his face just below the nose down to the chin. When the energy around Naruto finally retracted fully, the boy's eyes opened, and his blue eyes stared at them all with a bored expression, like they were insignificant specks of dust and dirt that deserved nothing less than a brief gust of wind to blow them all away from his sight. Cracking his neck from side to side, the boy looked at the various shinobi in front of him, from Jounin to Anbu, to Danzo to the Hokage, to some of the various clan heads that were there to Iruka, who he paused to look at for a small moment, and making the men nervous before moving on until he stopped when seeing Mizuki in the tree. Narrowing his eyes at the scared man, he raised his left hand with his palm exposed, and made everyone tense at his sudden movement. "Bala," said Naruto, from which a shot of red energy flew out of his hand, and blew a hole the size of a man's skull where the heart was located. Mizuki couldn't even let out a proper cry of pain, as death took him, and he fell out of the tree onto the ground with his eyes showing the horror of his situation. The shinobi seeing this looked from Mizuki to Naruto, and did this several times in disbelief before they all went tense when the boy redirected his gaze to the Hokage. "Naruto," questioned the Sandaime cautiously while taking a careful step forward. "The boy is resting. You will address me for now, Sandaime Hokage," said Naruto, but in a tone that was not the boy the Hokage knew, and it was clear from his words that it was not Naruto addressing them. "Kyuubi?" questioned the Hokage with more caution, and a hint of fear, while the shinobi around comfort their fears. "If you are referring to the giant nine-tailed fox that was sealed in the boy, then no is my answer to you, old man. I am not the fox. In fact, I killed the demonic beast," answered the figure with an evil smile that made the fears of everyone around him spike. "You killed the Kyuubi no Kitsune?" "Impossible," stated Hiruzen with the red-haired boy shaking his head. "So naive for one so old? Or perhaps it's arrogance that blinds you? Doesn't matter. The fox was killed by me, devoured by me." That demonic energy from the bijou went a long way into reviving and strengthening me when the boy put my crown on his head. I have never met someone so unafraid of death, but given his memories growing up during his childhood, it's no real surprise, is it? Stated the figure with his accusing question and stare making the Sandaime Hokage nervous. "I don't know what you mean," replied Hiruzen while the figure in Naruto's body let a sneer come across his scarred face. "I have no love for human filth, and even less for those that would dare lie to my face like you are doing right now," stated the figure with his right hand tightening around his cane. "I am not lying," exclaimed Hiruzen with the being narrowing Naruto's blue eyes at him with a piercing gaze. "Bala," stated the figure with another blast firing suddenly from the boy's left hand, and killing a Jounin right next to Inuzuka-sum. "No," exclaimed Iruka at seeing the man go down with the same expression of horror on his face that Mizuki had. "For every lie you tell, someone around you will die," stated the figure in Naruto's body with the Hokage looking from the dead Jounin back to him. "You didn't have to do that," replied the Hokage with the being now possessing Naruto once more looking at him with disgust, like a god looking at a fly that was buzzing at him, and was seconds away from being swatted out of existence. "On the contrary, old fool, I did have to do that for the boy's sake. The memories of that Jounin using him for target practice and weapons, and jutsus when he was 7 were very clear on how I should proceed. If anything, I was too merciful. The fact you lied just gave me the excuse to kill him right now to make my point get across," answered the figure with the Hokage's eyes widening in shock like the others. "Just who are you? If you are not Kyuubi or Naruto, then what do we call you?" asked Hiruzen with Naruto's face now sporting a cruel smile, and a chuckle leaving the boy's throat. My name is Baragan Lausenbern, former Hollow King of Hueco Mundo for all tortured and lost souls that failed to cross over to their proper sides in the afterlife when they die," answered Baragan with the shinobi around him going tense. "I don't understand," stated Hiruzen with Baragan shaking his head. "Humans never do understand things until it's too late, and while we are on the subject of not understanding, perhaps you can help me understand something. Like why this child was abused so badly by these fools around me for something that was not his fault, why the village never honored the dying wish of his parents, who died so honorably in battle against the Kyuubi, and sealed the demon within him," questioned Baragan with many shinobi around the two looking at each other in shock, and it was clear these shinobi didn't know the truth while the few that didn't look shocked were silently cursing at the secret coming out. "Sealed the demon. Wait, he's the son of the Yondaime Hokage?" questioned Iruka with the Hollow King looking over at him for a second. "Yes, he is the son of that man. So much potential in this boy, and it was squandered and suppressed by fools like this one in front of me," exclaimed Baragan with disgust in his eyes. "Suppressed? What do you mean suppressed?" asked Iruka while seeing Baragan turn Naruto's face to him, and scoff at the man like he was an idiot. Aside from the abuse he suffered, this boy was taught next to nothing, and learned less than color he inherited from his mother's side of the family to show he was indeed an Uzumaki, answered Baragan while the old Hokage in front of him wincing at that. I thought if the boy had blonde hair like his father, the people would be more receptive to him, and hate Naruto less for what he held, answered the Hokage with Baragan once more scoffing like he had just been told something completely wrong by a total moron. That hardly worked from the start, and even less when you gave him the Uzumaki name that belonged to his mother. Those of Uzumaki blood have red hair, and hiding it just made the people think otherwise with the last name. They no sooner believed he was an Uzumaki than they did in him being completely human, remarked Baragan with the old Hokage wincing again. I did my best with what resources I had to help Naruto, but, Hiruzen replied, but with silence when another Jounin went down that was close to Iruka. That particular Jounin nearly set the boy fire on 3 different occasions during 3 different birthdays. The third attempt was nearly a success. Also, you haven't explained your actions for the suppression seals that worked on his mind, and I had to destroy them from the inside out so this child could properly absorb my memories without the risk of his poor brain exploding, stated Baragan while the Hokage shifted uneasily. We felt the boy was too dangerous to be kept without some form of proper restraint being put into effect. His potential combined with being the Jinchuriki of the demon was too great to ignore, stated Hamura with Baragan looking at him for a moment before refocusing on the Hokage. And one of the boy's godparents. They couldn't help raise and watch him properly. I find that impossible unless they were either lied to about Naruto being dead or they have no love much less desire to take care of the boy. Which is it? Questioned Baragan with the Hokage wincing along with the Shinobi Council elders, and Danzo too since they were hoping the former Hollow King of Hueco Mundo wouldn't know about the 2 Sannin. How do you know about them? Asked Kaharu with Baragan touching Naruto's temple with his left hand. 2 sources. First, were memories. Memories from the fox himself that I obtained when I devoured him. Second, the souls of Namikaze Minato and Uzumaki Kushina that were left in the boy as a failsafe for the seal that held the fox, answered Baragan, and saw the shinobi around him gasp in shock. A part of their souls were inside Naruto? Asked the Sandaime with Baragan letting out a small amused chuckle at the question. Yes, honorable and cunning to the last, truly humans worthy of recognition in their own way. Haribel would given them some measure of respect given she was the Espada of sacrifice. But we're getting off topic here. In regards to Naruto's loving parents, they manifested themselves when Kyuubi's power rushed into my being when the Bijou tried to expel my presence in the boy, and it backfired with my power being restored while within the boy. But the seal itself is still at work, and I too will one day be absorbed fully into Naruto shortly in a few months. By that point, all my memories, my powers, how to use them, and everything that I am will be fused into his being for the boy to command as he sees fit. Even now they are talking to him inside his mind, learning of his life, seeing his memories as I have, and they are most displeased, stated Baragan with an empty chuckle leaving Naruto's throat while looking the Sandaime right in the eyes. This information is highly classified? We should not be out here talking about this so casually, said Danzo suddenly since he didn't want this getting worse, and possibly risk outside forces hearing anything else. How very true. Not that it matters anyway to me since the truth will get out sooner or later. But by all means let's walk to your meeting room, where you once decided the boy's life, mere hours after the Kyuubi was sealed. And let us speak of this in a more civilized manner, remarked Baragan, as he walked forward in the boy's body, and grinned when the large army of shinobi parted to let him pass. The grin never left the former Hollow King the entire time he was walking to the Hokage Tower. Hokage Tower meeting room? Repeat of tonight's events? Baragan Lausenbairn sat in the chair opposite of the governing bodies of Konoha that were in front of him, his eyes looking at everyone with disdain, disgust, and dislike with it not necessarily being in that order. The civilian council was to Baragan's left, the clan heads were sitting to his right, the 2 shinobi council members along with Danzo, and the Hokage were in the middle. They were all different shapes, sizes, and the only thing they had in common was they were stinking of fear. And they weren't wrong in that regard. All of us are here regarding the new developments surrounding Uzumaki Naruto, and this being Baragan Lausenbairn that has killed the Bijou, explained Hiruzen, and saw the civilian council looking pleased to hear the fox was no more while still being fearful of the entity that killed it. Among other things that need to be addressed, stated Baragan while looking them all in the eyes, and saw they were not going to dispute that. Yes, with the Bijou inside Naruto dead, Konoha is now without a Jinchuriki, and thus at a disadvantage if any other village wishes to use theirs in a war with us. At the same time we must also address Naruto's future in Konoha, and how it should be changed from the life he had previously here, said the third Hokage while Baragan was moving his cane slightly left of right light. He was bored. Is there really anything to discuss, Hokage-sama? The boy's value hasn't changed in the slightest, stated one member of the civilian council. Actually it has changed since word has no doubt spread throughout the village of Naruto being the son of the late Shodaime Hokage, and Uzumaki Kushina. I assume you wish the boy to receive his inheritance, Baragan-sama, replied Hiruzen with Baragan nodding slightly. Wait, why should we give the boy, much less this thing, anything of the Yondaimes, or his wife? They were never married. Illegitimate children receive no such things until they are full-grown adults, stated Councilman Hiruno, since his father had put that law into effect to ensure his family didn't have any bastard children. How far in the dark do you honestly expect to keep these fools, Shodaime Hokage? You tell them that the fox they hate is sealed in this boy, but keep his lineage in the shadows, and no doubt sealed away until your perfect weapon is too loyal if not too stupid to really oppose the idea of ripping this village to pieces. When was the boy even going to learn of his heritage? Or was he to stay oblivious forever while those of you sitting in your cradle of power watch him struggle to come to terms with not knowing? Questioned Baragan with a sneer, once more crossing Naruto's face through him. He was going to be told at the proper time. To be honest, Baragan-sama, you had no right to tell him, or trigger the events that did, scolded Kaharu before Baragan let his displeasure of being talked to in that matter be known, and slammed his cane down on the wooden floor. The dark energy from it damaging the room, the walls cracked, windows shattered, the ceiling above leaking dust, and the floor splintered in a spider web-like pattern. His gaze was hardened, and it was clear the former Hollow King was not happy with this insolence brought about by this old woman. Do not presume to judge me like you are my superior in every way, old woman. Your species has the lifespan of fleas? I have lived longer than anyone of your bloodline, and long before, when the 9 Bijou were all one single entity sealed within your legendary Sage of 6 Paths. Do not presume to scold me like I am the child that sits before you that I inhabit. I could kill you all on a whim, and not shed a tear of regret or sadness with the boy feeling the same way, especially after all he has been through, which you all let happen. And let's not forget you have kept so many things from him from the start, with the fox sealed inside his body being one of them, exclaimed Baragan with the humans around him shaking in their seats. What exactly is it that you want from us, Baragan-sama? Asked Hiruzen humbly, with the former Hollow King smiling a cruel smile using Naruto's face. Simple. I want the boy to have a life. A happy life. A life you would never have let him achieve if not for his actions in putting on my crown. Ironic, isn't it? He put it on in the belief that it would kill him. The boy and I will merge into one single being, with his mentality being the dominant one, though my persona will ensure he matures well enough to not be the naive fool you were molding to be your weapon. As such, he will inherit my powers, my knowledge, and what he can do, so that the boy may one day take it beyond what I can do. So much potential in this child. He was born to take things in his possession to the next level, and break the limits around him. Such potential only manifests itself rarely, once every few centuries, answered Baragan, with a large group of people around him being nervous when hearing that. I may have lost the Kyuubi inside the brat, but perhaps I can manipulate this being, or the boy after the two merge into one. Regardless, I will mold the boy into being my weapon regardless of what this thing wants, and I will not be stopped. Thought Danzo, since he was not going to let his personal ambitions be stopped by this supposed former king of all hollows. As such, I have stipulations and conditions I want put into place that will ensure Naruto stays in Konoha long after I'm gone. After all, I'm sure you wouldn't want him to go to another village like Iwa, Kumo, or even a minor shinobi village to become a devastating force that could bring everyone around him to their knees, stated Baragan, while the members of the governing body of Konoha paled at the idea of Naruto leaving the Leaf and one day become its enemy. What are your terms? Asked the Hokage, while the former Hollow King just smirked at him. First, the boy's lineage is to be made known to everyone. Do not hide it. Do not try to spin it that you were protecting him from his enemies, since we both know that is a lie, and I hate liars. I will be taking up residence at the Namikaze home for the time being unless I find it too disgusting to my taste and I simply destroy it. I am also going to need access to the Namikaze and Uzumaki accounts his parents left for the boy while viewing all the holdings and investments they had in this village. I will not have my heir living off the scraps people throw away, or have him diving into dumpsters like he did until the age of 7, or living in that condemned apartment building he moved into at the age of 8 through your kind act of finding him a home. Second, those that hurt the boy are to be punished, and some even executed publicly depending for their crimes based on the various memories I have seen of people committing them. Third, financial restitutions will be made from every store owner that kicked him out, or sold him poor quality goods at an overpriced value. Fourth, the boy will have traveling right like the Sannin do, and speaking of the Sannin, I want those two neglectful morons here in 2 weeks to answer for their crimes against him. If they don't arrive within 2 weeks, half of this village's children will die from the power I will unleash before the eyes of their parents, stated Baragan, with the clan heads protesting. Wait. You can't. Our children and the children of this village are innocent? Protested Inoichi, since the thought of his little being destroyed before his eyes being too much to withstand. I can't. Did you just state to me what I can and cannot do? I can do whatever I wish to this village, and if it means killing half of the next generation of shinobi in training, then I'll do it with a smile on my face. The same smile the idiots in this village had when they tried to butcher this boy's body, mind, and soul during the time he was growing up here. So I suggest you get a message to those two Sanin quickly within 2 weeks, or else the population in this village will be crippled for several decades. You have 2 solid weeks to get 2 people back to Konoha, and let's be honest here when I say I know they can get here in half the time. I'm only giving you 2 weeks because I want to see just how much they love this village and their godson to that extent. Depending on when they get here should prove to say volumes in that regard to both, countered Baragan with his power flowing throughout the damaged room, and further reinforcing the fact that he was indeed holding all the cards, and using them fully to his advantage. Any further demands, Baragan-sama? Asked Hiruzen while making a mental note to get a message out to Tsunade and Jiraiya the fastest way possible, while telling them that saying no was not an option. Yes. My 5th demand requires that you Shodaime Hokage reveal yours and everyone else's hands in Naruto's mistreatment. That you encouraged it, allowed the people to get away with abusing the boy, and what punishments were delivered to the people were in fact minor. 6th, since the boy will to take multiple wives to revive his clan. For those of you among the clan heads here with daughters, you will be setting up arranged marriages for them so they will marry the boy, but they will under no such circumstances rule over him, much less try to manipulate him at your request, and any girl he wishes to marry that catches his interest will not be shunned away unless good reason is found with unquestionable proof. As to my 7th and final term, you will reveal the truth on how Kyuubi appeared 12 years ago, and not simply because it appeared due to being a mindless beast like you've been spinning since that night. You know what I'm talking about, Shodaime Hokage, said Baragan with the Hokage sighing while the civilian council frowned, the clan heads doing the same, and the shinobi council scowling since they didn't want that piece of information known, while Danzo was seething on the inside. Damn, I need public support for the last loyal Uchiha, and that won't happen if the people find out an Uchiha somehow had a hand in the Kyuubi attack, thought Danzo, as he tried to use the Sharingan eye surgically implanted in him, and hidden behind his bandaged face on the boy, only to find it was useless. That stupid fool, he thinks that hypnotic power I sensed behind that bandaged face of his will influence me. Ha! Aizen Zanpakuto makes his power look like a joke. I will not be manipulated again by such a power, and neither will my heir. Your death will come soon enough, old fool, thought Baragan while making a mental note for the boy to be mindful of Danzo so he doesn't somehow fall into the same situation he did with Aizen all those years ago. I think I can safely speak for everyone here when I say we humbly agree to all of your terms, Baragan-sama, said Hiruzen with Baragan sneering at him like he was an ant. I'm sure you are humble. Just remember that I am not naive nor stupid in believing you agree to these terms willingly. I can see even now that some of you are plotting against me, and the boy to use him for your future plans. So know this piece of information in advance, because I will not say it again. Any attempt now, or in the future to control me, or the boy will fail miserably. That when caught you will be annihilated in a slow, painful manner that no amount of pleading, begging, and or crying out will save you from your well-deserved death. You will be made to suffer in front of your loved ones as they watch you all slowly rot and die, stated Baragan with his eyes drilling holes through those in the room with him. With what he said having been said, the former king of All Hallows got out of his chair, and walked out of the room to the home that rightfully belonged to the boy. This is bad, Hiruzen. The lives of the people in Konoha are now further in jeopardy than ever, stated Danzo with the old Hokage nodding. We cannot turn down his demands, Danzo. You know that. The amount of power he was using earlier makes us all, and the previous Hokages plus Kyuubi combined, look tame by comparison. Can you really tell me you would defy this being, knowing that everyone in the village will suffer for it, and die because your pride won't allow you to be humble just once? Asked the Hokage with Danzo remaining silent on the matter. No, but I will not stand by quietly while this thing uses us, and manipulates things to his advantage, exclaimed Danzo with Narashikaku groaning. Troublesome. Don't you mean manipulate things to his advantage against you? Face it, Danzo, you were the one spearheading the idea of making Naruto into a mindless weapon since the beginning, and making us all question the Yondaime sealing ability. The only thing I'm glad about is I don't have a daughter this guy can have me set up an arranged marriage with, Shikaku said while Inoichi was crying for the sake of his little girl. We are not out of the woods just yet, Shikaku. Remember, if neither Jiraiya or Tsunade show up in 2 weeks' time, our children could die by Baragan-sama's hands like he first threatened should the Sannin not return, said Chozo with Shikaku going pale in the face. Shit, My wife is going to literally kill me if that happens to our son. Maybe even before it happens, grumbled Shikaku, knowing his wife wasn't going to be happy with him. In any case, go back to your homes, and relate to them what happened here, among other things that a select few of you must do regarding your children. Hopefully we can endure this storm, and only time will tell. Namikaze Estates. Baragan looked at the place with appraising eyes. It wasn't grand like the ever-massive homes you see in the form of a daimyo's palace, but it wasn't a rundown piece of crap, and certainly worthy of the boy he would one day merge with. It was well furnished, the lighting worked, and everything seemed to be functional since the last day it was used by Naruto's parents. Apparently Kushina had thought to put preservation seals throughout the house to ensure time would make the building fall apart. While his power would destroy the seals and the house if unleashed, he had to admire the woman's smarts for doing that in the event no one was around to keep up maintenance. It's a bit dusty, but nothing a good cleaning won't fix, remarked Baragan while he once more mentally noted how wonderful it had been to have no walls or ceiling when it came to his version of Las Noches back before Aizen came to see him. No dust to clean up for one thing, and while such an act in cleaning would be beneath him given his royal status, Kushina was most helpful in providing a jutsu that took care of that easily with one use. So a few one-handed hand signs later, Baragan sent his energy in a non-lethal manner throughout the manor, and obliterated all the dust in the house. With his task done, the former Hollow King and the Uzumaki boy's body walked to the master bedroom to give Naruto's form its much-needed rest. While he had impressed and terrified the fools running the village, it was merely to do just that, and not look deeper into the situation surrounding the boy's form. In truth, the body needed more time to get used to the changes, the power, and required uninterrupted time stabilizing it. Naruto was his heir now, a life he had met for only a few hours, yet the merging of memories, and seeing the child's living condition, using that term lightly, brought about a deep form of attachment. It was strange for the former Hollow King, but Baragan felt that this was perhaps some unseen deity's intervention into his life, and making him start over in the form of this boy. A new lease on life, if you will, which was ironic considering he was the embodiment of death, and took the lives of others long before humans understood half the things they do now. Shaking his, or rather Naruto's, head of these thoughts, the former Espada and Hollow King went to the master bedroom for a good night's sleep in a comfortable bed. Hyuga clan compound. The next day, Hyuga Hayashi sat among the Hyuga clan elders, his first of two daughters, Hyuga Hinata, sitting across from them, her cousin, and Hayashi's nephew Hyuga Niji, was to the side to listen to the upcoming events. The shy girl had been surprised to be summoned to a meeting so soon after graduating, since the clan had did little to praise her on account it was expected, and therefore not needing of praise. If anything, they would have been shamed if she failed to be among the top kunoichi and student at the academy when it came to competing against the other clan heirs. With the rumors and news spreading throughout the village from last night into the morning, it was hard to tell what rumors were really true, and what rumors were actually false given how everyone kept telling everyone else different things. At the same time, as you all may have heard, the incident last night regarding Uzumaki Naruto and the stealing of the Forbidden Scroll was indeed true. While the true nature of why the boy did it is not fully known, it is suspected that the child was tricked into doing it if eyewitness accounts about the late academy instructor Mizuki talking to Uzumaki Naruto hours before the theft are indeed true, and was hoping to find some way to earn the right to be a genin of Konoha. In doing so, the boy discovered an object sealed away by the Shodaime Hokage in the Forbidden Scroll to ensure it was never used by anyone, and tried to use it on himself in the belief the object would in fact kill him, stated Hayashi, hearing his daughter gasp, and the look of horror at hearing how Naruto tried to end his life last night. I take it that the boy has failed in that regard just like he does in everything else that his life took its place, answered Hayashi, with the Hyuga elders stiffening before they looked at Hinata, seeing her own curiosity regarding what he just said. Hayashi-san, is it wise to speak of this topic with your daughter and nephew here? The Sandame's law was very clear on the matter, spoke a second elder with this one next to Hayashi. A law this clan and this village have never truly followed. Besides, I know the other clan heads are having this very same meeting regarding Naruto, and this will be part of the discussion for them too. As for the Sandame's law itself, the law regarding the truth about the Kyuubi was repealed last night after the emergency meeting we had regarding the Uzumaki boy. The reason the law was repealed is because Uzumaki Naruto no longer holds the Kyuubi in him. The fox was killed in a sense by Uzumaki Naruto when he used the forbidden object in the Forbidden Scroll of Sealing, answered Hayashi, with everyone shocked by this news. So the boy survived. I take it he will be punished then for killing Konoha's defense against other Jinchuriki from other shinobi villages, remarked the first Hyuga elder, while Hinata's eyes widened in fear of the boy she admired, and had a crush on being punished. No, the boy will not be punished because of this other matter that must be addressed, and will not be challenged by anyone here. After the Kyuubi was killed, a new entity far stronger than the Bijou manifested itself, and was not exactly pleased with how the Leaf Village treated Uzumaki Naruto for the past 12 years of his life. Several jounin died last night that according to this entity had a hand in Naruto's abuse, and were never punished for it, answered Hayashi with the Hyuga elders scowling. The boy has been a pest since his birth. What does it matter if the village's Jinchuriki suffers growing up? That is their purpose, so they can be molded into fighting weapons for their village. The fact that Kyuubi is gone now because of the boy's cowardice cannot go unpunished. Hayashi, you must make a motion before the Hokage to see the boy suffers for his insolence, stated a third Hyuga elder, who happened to be Hayashi's father, and a fanatical supporter of the cage bird seal. Such a motion will never make it to our next meeting with the Hokage. The entity who called himself Baragan Lausenbaron was a former king of hollows, which are beings of terrible power forged from the tortured souls they once were in life, and the darkness of the abyss they lived in after dying. His power was what everyone inside and outside of Konoha felt last night with that large tower of energy belonging to him. If we make any move against Naruto for any reason, it will mean death not only for us, but our children too, stated Hayashi before looking at Hinata, and then at Niji. This is insulting, exclaimed the first Hyuga elder while Hayashi's father nodded in full agreement. Baragan-sama has laid out various conditions to be met by the Hokage to help ensure Naruto does stay in the village if only for a time, and additional terms were also made to various clans with daughters around the boy's age. Apparently, the boy is the son of our late Yondaime Hokage, and his wife Uzumaki Kushina of the Uzumaki clan of Whirlpool Country, replied Hayashi with the Hyuga elders, sucking in their teeth, and Hinata now gasping again in shock. So the boy has some nobility. He's still a mongrel when compared to the Hyuga clan? Remarked Hayashi's father with Hayashi himself sighing, and trying to reel in his temper. On the contrary, father, Naruto's standing now rivals if not surpasses ours, since he is the son of a cage, and that of clan heiress on his mother's side since she was meant to lead the Uzumaki clan prior to her marriage to Namikaze Minato. But that was ended when her clan was nearly wiped out as a child, and was brought here to live with Uzumaki Mito, who you are all aware was the Shodaime Hokage's wife, stated Hayashi with the elders looking like they swallowed 1,000 lemons. And what of this condition regarding clans with daughters? Asked the second Hyuga elder in a more passive fashion. Baragan knows of the CRA, and how Naruto meets all the requirements. He is more or less commanding each clan with daughters to set up arranged marriages with these girls and the boy, answered Hayashi with Hinata blushing with white eyes, and 2 out of the 3 Hyuga elders, now looking ready to explode. Absolutely not, exclaimed the first Hyuga elder. This is beyond insulting. This creature dares demand this of us, and the other clans herein. Enough, this is not up for discussion, it must be done. Failure to comply results in the entire clan, and the village as a whole paying the price for any defiance against Baragan-sama's demands in the form of death. This arranged marriage on our end will help Naruto form attachments to Konoha, and not leave the village to possibly live somewhere else that could possibly be our enemy. The boy has no reason to be loyal to Konoha right now. He has no reason to stay in Konoha, and this village as a whole is the source behind it. So by all means, protest loudly, take to the streets, make a motion before the Sandaime Hokage, and denounce the boy along with the entity inside of him if it will make you feel better. In the end, you will only be signing your death warrant, and those within the entire village for your arrogance, countered Hayashi while glaring at each elder, and then looked at Hinata with her head down so not to see his gaze. She knew what was being asked of her. It wasn't uncommon for noble clans to do this with noble families to further influential and political ties. Still, it wasn't something that Hinata was against since it was with Naruto, and not some spoiled noble thinking that he could do anything on account of who his parents were. Surely Hanabi is the best choice then for this arrangement. We can hold out longer in the process, and by that point the boy should be satisfied with the other wives he will already have at the time, said Hayashi's father while Hinata stiffened slightly at the mention of a younger sister. No, such a ploy will be seen immediately, and might insult Baragan-sama, and Naruto to that extent depending on what the future holds in terms of his personality. I will not risk the Hyuga clan much less Konoha as a whole simply to stall for time in the hopes the boy's harem no longer possesses any vacancies. Hinata, exclaimed Hayashi with his voice cracking like a whip when calling his daughter's name. Yes, father? Asked Hinata while now looking at her father in the eyes. If you were to be in arranged marriage with this boy, would you be able to do your duty in being his wife? And do everything in your power to keep him happy? To keep him loyal to Konoha? Asked Hayashi with Hinata looking away slightly, and had to fight the urge to look away further before steeling her resolve while remembering this was connected to Naruto. I would do what I must for Konoha and the Hyuga clan. However, my marriage to Naruto-kun alone may not be enough, and in order for me to be a proper wife to him in the future, I must first be his friend. Something which I was told not to do from the start, answered Hinata while keeping her tone formal without a stutter, which surprised herself greatly, yet it also had a small hint of a new screwed up in there. The Hyuga elders, her father, and Niji just imagined it since they never believed she would do that, which we were mistaken from the start to do it seems. Hinata, it is your duty as the Hyuga heiress, and now Konoha shinobi to gain Naruto's friendship before advancing that relationship to the next level. You will befriend him, start a relationship with him, and eventually marry him for the sake of having his children. That all these things will help him stay loyal to Konoha, commanded Hayashi with Hinata bowing humbly at the order. Wait, what about the Byakugan? We can't have the bloodline leave the protection of the clan. She must have it sealed first before pursuing the boy, exclaimed Hayashi's father with Hinata wincing, and Niji having a small smirk on his face. Again, such a move on our part might be considered an insult to Baragan-sama, and possibly Naruto himself, countered Hayashi with his father sneering at him. To hell with how those two things feel about it. If this former Hollow King wishes to have an arranged marriage with your failure of a child, then she must have the cage bird seal on her, and another that blocks the bloodline from rising through her offspring she might have with the brat, stated Hayashi's father, since he felt Hinata was a failure as a granddaughter and refused to let any child she produced have their bloodline unless it was within the walls of the clan itself. That brat, as you called him, will one day become the most powerful person in Konoha, and even the world, since his power will only grow as time goes on. As such, any child Hinata will have that same potential, and their eyes will reach a level beyond anything we have seen in our generation. Surely you would not wish to cripple the next generation of potential Byakugan users. Traditions are what keep this clan pure, Hayashi. Traditions are what kept Kumo from taking the eyes of our clan, and you, when this child of yours was kidnapped so easily, with the end result of her failure costing you your brother's life, deprived your nephew of his own father? Exclaimed Hayashi's father with Hayashi closing his eyes and balled his fists while Hinata looked down in shame. Niji for his part glared at Hinata. Perhaps in some manner of speaking, you are correct in that regard. But had we simply changed certain traditions to match the times, perhaps my brother would not have been the one so willing to throw his life away for me. Perhaps if traditions matched the times, it would have been Hinata who was deprived of a father, and not Niji. Traditions this clan has been unwilling to change out of fear of the very word, countered Hayashi with a piercing look aimed at his father before he turned his attention to his now disheartened daughter. She cherished her uncle very much. No cruel bone in her body? And what was her reward for such loving nature? Scorn, hatred, and disgust from those that perceived it a weakness, while those in the Branch family adored the girl. Well, almost everyone. Regardless, the terms he set are too high if the girl is not fitted with a cage bird seal and bloodline seal to prevent birthing Hyuga children. If this Baragan does not like it, then he can contend with me, and me alone, to prevent any true disaster to befall the clan, stated Hayashi's father with Hayashi letting out something of him sound from his throat. If you wish to speak to Baragan-sama, I'm sure it can be arranged through the Hokage, since the Sandaime is scheduled to meet with the entity within Naruto by the end of the week, replied Hayashi while seeing his father smirk in a sense of victory. But Hayashi himself knew what his foolish old man was planning: to get close to Baragan and try to perform a noble service by killing the entity through killing Naruto via lethal gentle fist strike being dealt to the boy. Something Hayashi was sure would fail spectacularly. Namikaze states 1 week later. Baragan sighed, or rather made Naruto's body make the sigh while he sat in meditative stance to focus the energies within this body. So much focus was required for a body so young like this one, and in another age or time would have been taxing to the former Hollow King's patience. But he was not that man. Not anymore. The seal on this boy, even when ripped apart from his manifestation once absorbing all of the Biju's chakra, was still in effect, and it was only a matter of months before Naruto was once again in command of the body. The boy had much to learn, but couldn't do that while awake and running around in the daily life of the world around him. No, the mindscape was the best choice to teach the boy, as he had done, knowing time had no real meaning there like it did in the outside world, and the boy would need every second in his mind to process the knowledge before him. Not just Baragan's knowledge either, but that of his parents, and what they know that would pass down to him, given the pieces of their soul sealed with the boy would be devoured, peacefully without pain, into Naruto with all of their knowledge joining him. The Yondaime's jutsus, the Uzumaki bloodline his mother had, and their skills in the art of sealing. The last part was fascinating to Baragan, as he saw what those seals could do through their memories, and what they could do when used properly. Even Aizen would not deny how potent they could be when used, and their potential to do many great things when one became a master of such things. Such a skill was the boy's birthright. It was in his blood, and Baragan would see Naruto was using it like he should have been from the start. There was just one problem. His power still hadn't stabilized properly? Frowning, Baragan tried to understand why that was the case. Sure, demonic energy did tend to have that extra kick. It wasn't the first time he had devoured the stuff, to the gut when eaten, though given how this was much more than a little, the former Espada, and Hollow King believed time was needed to properly digest the demonic power, before it settled down. Only it had not settled down? Not entirely? Feeling, perhaps the source of the instability lies not in the fox himself, but the manner in which he was sealed, and the events prior to the sealing. Time to take a dive through memory lane, thought Baragan with a hint of amusement before he called upon the Biju's long line of memories, and flipped through them until he got to that one night of the sealing 12 years ago when this boy's parents sacrificed themselves for him. Once again, he suspected Tia Harabel would acknowledge what they had done for their son, and given them a nod of respect for that. Not many humans would do what they did for their loved ones, since he had seen enough humans do the exact opposite. Pushing that aside for now, Baragan found the memory of that night, and played it like a movie with his eyes watching every little detail go by. He stopped the memory when he saw how the Shodaime Hokage split the Kyuubi in two, and sealed the other half into his body to ensure there would be no resurrection from the fox should the boy. A somewhat stupid move in Barragan's mind, since so many people hated the fox, and if they learned that if the boy died, then the fox died with him, the child wouldn't have lived past his first year being born. Fortunately, by some mere manner of luck, no one knew this little fact, and was the only thing that stayed the cruel hands of the majority in the village that hated the boy for holding Kyuubi from ending the child's life. But at least now Baragan knew where to go for the problem he was having with this body. With that in mind, after getting up from the ground, the former Hollow King opened up a desk drawer for himself, and entered the dark void to his intended destination where the cages were all buried. When he reached his destination, Baragan looked around to see the gravesite before him, the memories of the past from the Kyuubi when he was in Uzumaki Mido, and her visiting the Shodaime's grave every so often. Pretty soon her brother-in-law would join his brother here, and everyone fully expected the Sandaime to do the same before he had officially retired after naming Namikaze Minato his successor. Only for the man to be buried here before the Sandaime Hokage himself, and of course the wives of each Hokage joining them. Hashirama had Uzumaki Mido, his brother had died a bachelor, the Yondaime was buried with his wife, and the Sandaime's wife. Well, this was interesting. So that explains his dislike for Naruto, why he caved so easily to the demands of the people. The old fool hated Naruto for the loss of his wife. Figures the man had a reason aside from appeasing the masses like he first claimed. I should simply kill him at our next meeting if it weren't for the fact I'm letting Naruto decide what to do with the village when he takes over, thought Baragan before walking over to the grave that was marked as the Yondaime's before slamming his cane down on the ground. The energy sent from the cane spread through the ground around the coffin below before the soil that kept it hidden was obliterated instantly. The wooden coffin was covered in seals to preserve the body, and it was clear no one had touched the thing since it was put in the ground. What do you think you're doing? Came an angry voice behind Baragan, and the former Espada in Naruto's body turned to look behind him to see a masked shinobi with one eye and gravity-defying silver-white hair glaring at him. This does not concern you, leave shinobi. Leave me, replied Baragan before he turned back to the coffin in front of him, and was rewarded with the loud sound of chirping birds. Step away from my sensei's coffin, commanded the masked shinobi with his jutsu of choice in hand. Your sensei's coffin? Ah, you must be Hatake Kakashi, remarked Baragan before he turned more to get a good look at the man in front of him. I am? What is it to you? Countered Kakashi before he got a good look at this would-be grave robber. Surely you've heard the talk going on around the village about me. About a being that devoured Kyuubi, who currently possesses the body of the Jinchuriki that held Kyuubi, and is also the son of the Yondaime Hokage. Your sensei, if what you just told me is indeed true, replied Baragan with eyes on Baragan, because the man's body holds something I want, something I need. Something he knew could not be known to Konoha's populace, knowing it could, and most likely would mean the death of his son, answered Baragan before slamming his cane down, and made the coffin jump out of the ground from the hole it was in on before landing to the right of the former Espada. I don't care what you are, or what power you wield, I won't let you defile his grave and him. I will kill you, even if it means killing his own son, exclaimed Kakashi, and saw Baragan was amused if not a bit impressed. You have courage, I'll give you that much, boy. But you are no match for me when it comes to killing the boy. You tried once already with it ending in utter failure, replied Baragan with Kakashi narrowing his eyes at him. Step away from my sensei's coffin. Now, commanded Kakashi while Baragan letting out a small chuckle. Make me, that is, if you can, challenged Baragan before stabbing the coffin with his cane, and shattered the lid into tiny pieces to reveal the body of the Yondaime Hokage himself. Letting out a bellowing war cry, Kakashi moved at incredible speed toward Baragan, his Rakiri in hand, his Sharingan eye spinning, and his intent to kill was obvious. Baragan, however, did not make a move to stop Kakashi, waiting for the man to get close, and just when the Jounin was about to strike did something shocking happen. Baragan casually dodged the attack a mere second before it would have made contact and grabbed the outstretched arm at the elbow. Seconds later after that, Kakashi fell into his sensei's grave, clutching his now broken arm, and crying out in pain while Baragan looked down at him like he was nothing. "My arm, it's broken." He somehow broke with just a simple touch. Is that his true power he told the Sandaime and the others about yesterday? Thought Kakashi while looking up to see Baragan looking down at him with an impassive face. Your jutsu was impressive. You must be very proud of it. Though considering your own actions against your sensei's son in connection to that jutsu, I am a bit surprised that you would even use it again on Naruto, and myself to that extent over your sensei here. It's a shame you didn't learn common sense during the last 12 years you spent hating the boy, and wishing him dead at every turn. Perhaps I should seal your fate now, and simply bury you alive like you nearly let the villagers do when Naruto was 6. Perhaps then you will know what it is to die alone in the darkness. Something you wanted Naruto do while they were trying to bury him alive, remarked Baragan with Kakashi struggling to get off the ground. What did you do to me? Asked Kakashi with Baragan smirking before turning towards the exposed coffin of the Shodaime Hokage. The question you should be asking yourself, boy, is what I can still do to you, and this village should I become truly disgusted by your arrogant stupidity, remarked Baragan, as he knelt down in front of the coffin, and ripped the dead man's shirt open, and saw the same seal Naruto had on his body. Stop, Baragan-sama, you need to stop, exclaimed the Sandaime Hokage with a team of Anbu behind him. And I should stop what I'm doing now, why exactly? Questioned Baragan while he was tracing his fingers gently over the seal. Because you are dishonoring one of our village's heroes, replied Hiruzen while seeing the entity in Naruto's body let out a scoffing sound. You've done that already, fool. What does it matter if I desecrate the body when you've already dishonored him in mind and spirit? Besides, what I need to do is vital for the boy, and I will not be interrupted in doing what needs to be done, countered Baragan with his eyes shooting daggers at the old cage before he thrust his left hand into the seal, and pulled the yin half of Kyuubi out of the body. Right before he, much to the shock and horror of everyone around him, devoured the Kyuubi's yin chakra through the mouth into Naruto's body while laughing the entire time. When it was over, the Konoha shinobi watching him could only stare at the entity in Naruto's body, who let out a sigh of pleasure at devouring more demonic energy, and began walking away from them with a smile on his face. What did you hope to accomplish by doing that, Baragan? Answer me, demanded Hiruzen with the former Espada stopping in his walk, and turned to look at the old cage with the look of disgust in his eyes. Don't even think of commanding me, old cage. My power was far beyond you before, and has now exceeded it even further. Because I am in such a good mood, I will let your insolence towards me slide this one time, and simply walk away without giving you an answer. But should you continue to push me, this village will be destroyed along with all of those within it, replied Baragan before he simply opened up another desk drawer and walked through it. This is getting out of control fast. Damn it, Jiraiya. Tsunade, get your cess back here soon, thought the Sandaime Hokage while looking from where Baragan had walked away into that strange black void to the grave of the Shodaime Hokage. Things were definitely spiraling out of control, and the village itself was not liking it one bit. Baragan sighed, hating to meet with the Sandaime Hokage, to meet in this office, and to be in the presence of this old Hyuga walking around in dramatic fashion, while speaking loudly for anyone outside the room to hear his complaints. His complaints, the demands made that jeopardized the Hyuga clan with the arranged marriage, all the risks of having their precious bloodline, and the offspring, produced not being protected behind their clan walls with a caged bird seal to ensure they were never stolen. Of course, Baragan knew what the caged bird seal was, and knew it did anything but protect the bloodline of the clan. It enslaved them. How many times must the Hyuga clan sacrifice itself for the good of the Leaf Village Saratobi? How many more Hyugas must we surrender to appease enemy villages and creatures that threaten us with annihilation? It's too much. I will not allow this to happen unless the demands of the Hyuga clan are met, with Hayashi's daughter having the caged bird seal placed on her head and another to preventing our bloodline from manifesting itself in any offspring created from the union with a boy, demanded Hyuga Hibachi with the father of Hyuga Hayashi glaring venomously at Baragan, the former Espada residing in Naruto's body not even looking at him, and it was clear this meeting was quite boring in his mind despite all the dramatic posturing the old Hyuga was doing in his presence. All that posturing from the Hyuga was like watching a damn peacock showing off its feathers to remind those that see it of its splendor. and in this case it was to remind the Hokage of the Hyuga clan's prestige, that the set conditions made by Baragan would remove several of those beautiful feathers and making the bird look out of place with the other birds' clans around it. Hibachi-san, please, we are not talking about sending Hinata away to another country or shinobi village like Kumo. We are talking about her marrying someone within the walls of Konoha and helping Naruto create strong ties with the village, stated the Hokage while he kept a watchful between the two people in his office and making sure one did not provoke the other. But not within the walls of the Hyuga clan? Of Hyuga blood? Exclaimed Hibachi, with the Tsunade Hokage sighing. Hyuga blood creating Hyuga blood? Sounds like inbreeding to me, replied Baragan with Hibachi glaring daggers at him. We take great care to avoid inbreeding. We have done it with pinpoint precision since the clan's founding, Hibachi nearly yelled, probably because the first Hyuga to form the clan didn't start such things until much later, unless of course, they did do inbreeding from the start, and just branched off when they had enough members of the clan to do it without the risk of inbreeding, countered Baragan with Hibachi looking ready to strike out against him. The former Espada was hoping he would, since it would further enforce the point of not crossing him. How dare you? Yelled Hibachi, nearly moving to hit Baragan with a lethal gentle fist strike. Hibachi, don't. Several high-level shinobi have already fallen from a small sample of his power. Hatake Kakashi himself is currently in the hospital with a broken arm. From his touch alone, called out the Hokage with Hibachi staying his hand while Baragan was just looking at them with a bored expression on his face. Fine, but this matter is not over. The Hyuga clan will not consent to any arranged marriage unless our own stipulations are met. Will you concede to the demands of the Hyuga clan? Questioned Hibachi with Baragan looking at the top of his cane. Shouldn't the head of the Hyuga clan have the final say in this? Where is he? Asked Baragan in a bored tone. My son is busy. More important affairs have come to his attention and required that I take his place here, answered Hibachi with Baragan not even looking at him. I see. From the way you speak about your granddaughter, you don't have high hopes for her, or believe she is even worth being called your granddaughter, remarked Baragan with Hibachi sucking an air between his teeth. She is a failure of the clan. Weak. I am simply ensuring that the boy's chosen wife does not dishonor us, and knows her place when she becomes his wife, countered Hibachi with Baragan was looking a bit annoyed. I will judge whether or not she is weak and unfit to be Naruto's future wife. Not you, replied Baragan with Hibachi looking red in the face with anger. You dare impose your will on the Hyuga clan? To inspect the girl without trusting my words on the matter. You may be in the son of the Tsunade Hokage, but the boy is a commoner compared to the clan, and so are you by that extension. You have no right to dictate such terms to us, much less ignore what we demand of you in return. 4. Ranted Hibachi before a thunderous pressure filled the room, and made the Hyuga fall to his knees. I can demand whatever I want from you, and the Hyuga clan. I can demand anything I want from the entire village, if not this entire country. I will not only get what I demand from everyone around me, but I will get it with a smile on the faces of those that present the offerings, and watch them flee back to their homes while soiling themselves, stated Baragan while looking at the downed Hyuga struggling to rise from the intense weight in the room that neither he nor the Hokage could see but still feel. BB Baragan-sama? Stop, please, exclaimed the Hokage with the former Espada, waiting a few more seconds before doing what was asked of him. Let me make one thing clear to you two old fools. There is no negotiations here. There is only total submission, no compromise, just absolute domination. You can choose to live with the demands I've said, or you can slowly rot and die, stated Baragan before getting up from his chair and headed for the door. It was when his back was complete turn did Hibachi move to strike. Hibachi-san, don't? Exclaimed Hiruzen while watching Baragan vanish from his sight before reappearing behind the old Hyuga with a hand on the man's back. And the Hokage could only watch in horror as Hyuga Hibachi fell to the ground. Seconds later in the form of bones that soon turned to dust in the room. Do you know what I just Tsunade Hokage? Asked Baragan with the Hokage looking at him in fear and horror. You aged him? Exclaimed Hiruzen with Baragan nodding. Yes, that is my power, to make things age, to make things rot, to make things die, replied Baragan with an emphasis on his chosen words. I see, was the Hokage's only response. No, you don't see. Imagine what I will do to this village, and the next generation, should I find all my demands not being met? Imagine the young growing old. Imagine the young growing old, and dying before the eyes of the previous generation. Parents, having to watch their children become skeletal corpses before the bones turn to dust and scatter into the wind with no remains to bury? Now do you see? Stated Baragan with a whole new shade of white appearing on the Hokage's face as he imagined the horror that would be unleashed if the former Espada was displeased. All the requirements will be met, Baragan-sama, I swear it, exclaimed Hiruzen, with the former Hollow King letting out a scoff at his proclamation. We will see soon enough, Tsunade Hokage. I'm still waiting for the day when your two former students arrive, remarked Baragan with Hiruzen inwardly cursing at the lateness of Jiraiya and Tsunade. Where were they? Konoha Street. Sometime later, Baragan walked through the streets of Konoha, the people giving him a wide amount of space, and rightfully so, since word had reached the village of Hyuga Hibachi's death by his hand. Even now rumors were spreading of how with a single touch the Hyuga had died and rotted away, with many fearing the same thing would happen to them if he came in physical contact with them. Some wondered if that power would hurt the daughters of the clan heads when the marriages happened, and that it would punish them by watching each woman die on their wedding day. What is it? Asked Baragan, as he stopped walking and sensed a figure behind him. My mother suggested I meet with you, Baragan-sama, said a female voice, and saw the red-headed boy's form turn to look at her. Judging from the unique markings on your face, you are from the Inuzuka clan, and as for your mother, she is the clan head, deduced Baragan with the slightly older girl, physically anyway, walked toward him. Yes, my name is Inuzuka Hana, my mother is Inuzuka Itsume, and the clan head of our clan, Hana humbly stated while Baragan looked at her with an appraising eyes. I take it you and the rest of the Inuzuka clan knows the truth, stated Baragan, with the Inuzuka girl nodding. Yes, it created an uproar in the process. Some of our family members have little love for Naruto-san, replied Hana honestly, since she was told Baragan disliked liars and didn't wish to offend him, hence why the triplets she had for dog partners were told to stay home. Have, as in they still do? Asked Baragan curiously, with Hana nodding. From what my mother told me earlier in private when discussing my arranged marriage with Naruto-san, the late Shodaime Hokage, and his wife had enemies within the village as well as outside, answered Hana with Baragan nodding. I see. And how did you feel about Naruto prior to this information? Asked Baragan with Hana trying not to show nervousness in front of him. I was unsure of him. I had heard stories of Kyuubi, witnessed its power from a distance when I was still young pup of a girl, and knew from the whispers that Naruto-san carried it, but I never saw him lash out at people when they attacked him, even when I knew I would have in his place, so I thought perhaps that they were wrong about him being the demonic beast they all said he was when they talked in secret, answered Hana with the former Espada letting a smirk appear on the side of his mouth for a moment. Well, at least you are honest in your answer. I'll give you that much. At least you are far more open-minded than the rest of the arrogant fools in this village. No doubt there are plenty more people in other villages too that hold all the other Jinchuriki with the same level of disrespect, commented Baragan with Hana walking toward him. Mostly like yes. Each village treats their Jinchuriki pretty much the same, but they all use different methods in keeping them controlled, said Hana with Baragan frowning in thought. Such arrogance. You humans make these Jinchuriki, then treat them like they are pests for most of their lives until they are needed to fight, and then throw them away when their services are no longer required. Such a thing would never have happened in Hueco Mundo or in Las Noches for that matter, stated Baragan, though the last part was more to himself. It wasn't meant to be that way from what we were told about the history of the bijou, commented Hana before explaining the history of how Hashirama divided up the 9 bijou to each of the shinobi villages to promote peace and balance between them, only for them to be abused and used for warfare. Honorable intentions twisted by those hungry for power, remarked Baragan with disgust in his voice. It's just how things are here, Baragan-sama. You need to be strong to survive and use whatever is at your disposal to do it, said Hana with Baragan letting out a noise from his throat. True, but to abuse your subordinates for the sake of that power is not the way to do it. I have lived long enough to know that, countered Baragan with the memory of his loyal fraction dying under his command making the blood in this body boil. That and Naruto's own personality was merging with him, and the sense of betrayal the boy felt over this matter seeping into it. I'm sorry, Baragan-sama. I didn't mean to offend you by bringing up this sensitive topic, said Hana while seeing and sensing his anger over the matter. It's not your fault, my dear. Tell me, have the other clans been complying with everything I have asked of them? Questioned Baragan with Hana shifting nervously. I cannot truly say, Baragan-sama. My mother has submitted to your request in terms of agreeing the arranged marriage, but I'm not sure about the other clans, or how many of their respected members support it. Naruto-san was not well liked within the clans, with several members in each assaulting the pup when they had the chance, answered Hana with Baragan frowning slightly. All the more reason to enforce my presence and eventually make sure Naruto enforces his own when the time is right, remarked Baragan before walking down the street with Hana now walking beside him to talk about other things. The Inuzuka girl could only hope that doing this would put her clan in Baragan, and eventually Naruto's good graces. Hokage Tower day of the deadline? Baragan sat in the chair as he did before not that long ago. He was tapping his cane on the ground lightly, a means to keep himself from being bored, and it made those around him become on edge with nervousness. There was no power behind each tap he made with the cane, but it was fun to see these fools sweat knowing it could happen at any time, and they would be annihilated in the process without a moment to defend themselves. Why was he even in the room with these fools? He was waiting here originally for the two Sannin to come in and take their standing position on either side of the Shodaime Hokage. It was to show that they were loyal to the old man responsible for teaching them and were loyal to the leaf, not unlike Tauzen and Jin did when walking beside Aizen when they were walking through Las Noches doing something devious. Just the thought of them made Baragan want to head back and use his newly raised level of power to make those fools bow before him like they should have done when he first met them, but alas that was not possible, and even it was there was no telling what the state of the conflict between the two warring sides had been since his death. No, he had a clean slate to work with now, and was going to ensure he had a legacy that not even Aizen could take away from him. I would think the stench in this room would have lessened since I was here last. Instead, it has increased, and has become nauseating, remarked Baragan finally, while looking at the clock that was off to the side on the wall ticking away. What stench? Asked Hamura while keeping his emotions in check at the insult. The stench I smell coming off all of you, replied Baragan while seeing them all scowl and frown at his insult. With all due respect Baragan-sama, I do not smell any stink in this room, and my senses would know if any of us did. I assure you everyone here has a proper hygiene base smell about them, said Inuzuka Itsum with Baragan himself letting a cruel smile appear on his face. Of that I have no doubt, Inuzuka Itsum, though it's not a bodily stench I smell coming off of you and everyone else here. It's an emotional stench I smell and hear. It is the stench of arrogance. It is the stench of hatred. It is the stench of fear, exclaimed Baragan with those around him shifting at his words. Surely not everyone smells that way to you, Baragan-sama, asked the Burame Shibi, who was a man of logic, and only let his emotions become known when required. No, not all of you do? That still doesn't weaken the stench in the slightest sense. The vast majority in the room stink of these things. It's only increased since the last meeting we had, and considering the lack of two Sannin in room, I can see why, countered Baragan with his smile never leaving. What do you mean, Baragan-sama? Jiraiya and Tsunade are right here next to Hokage. Sama, exclaimed Inoichi while happy the two Sannin were here despite cutting it close. Do you take me for fool? Do any of you think I'm naive? That I will simply believe what you show me and not check to ensure these two Sannin are indeed who you claim them to be without question to their authenticity? Questioned Baragan with a clan heads frowning while the civilian and shinobi council were sweating along with the Hokage. Watch your mouth, pal. I know who I am, and so does Tsunade, exclaimed Jiraiya, with Baragan looking at him dead in the eyes with a great deal of dislike. I know you are who you say you are, Jiraiya of the Sannin, but it's your supposed former teammate that I question the identity of being the genuine article, challenged Baragan while many of the people in the room looked shocked, and even outraged that he would question whether the woman was in fact Senju Tsunade. How dare you? Exclaimed one person. You don't even know what Tsunade-sama looks like. How would you even know if she was Tsunade or not? Challenged another. The fact you don't believe this woman to be one of the legendary three Sannin means that your power is not as great as you would like us to believe, stated another person. All from the civilian council side, of course. The clan heads, however, looked over at the form of Senju Tsunade, their eyebrows raised, searching for truth in Baragan's words, and noticed the shinobi council, along with the Hokage, seemed a tad nervous. This only enforced the former Espada's words, and in an instant Hayashi used his eyes to see if the woman before them was in fact the one true Senju Tsunade. That's not Tsunade-sama, exclaimed Hayashi with his voice a mixture of shock and pure outrage. What? Inoichi nearly yelled while the threat Baragan made from the start came to the forefront of his mind. Silence, both of you, commanded Hamura, but any further words were never spoken. When they heard the chuckle from Baragan, and his smile being a cruel one that sent shivers up the spines of everyone in the room. This village truly is pathetic. I didn't even need to use my own unique sensory abilities to know that woman wasn't Senju Tsunade. Do any of you want to know how I knew this woman wasn't the real Sannin? Questioned Baragan while the fake Tsunade removed the illusion to reveal she was in fact Konoha's Genjutsu mistress Yuhi Kurne, and it was clear this woman was terrified of the former Espada. How did you possibly know she wasn't Tsunade-sama? Questioned a member of the civilian council while Baragan sent him a watch your tone when addressing me. Look before giving a cold one to the Hokage. First, her posture alone didn't say she is a woman who was capable of physical strength that everyone knows Tsunade possesses. Second, this woman's eyes were filled with a sense of fear, and the worry that the real Senju Tsunade from the memories of Uzumaki Kushina would possess. Third, her very chakra signature is nowhere near the Toad Sanon's level, or that of the Hokage's own for that matter. The real Senju Tsunade would have near matching energy levels, but you two were hoping I wouldn't notice, and that the energy you were producing would mask it. Finally, the fourth reason for the ruse being so obvious was the lack of Tsunade's pet pig, and her apprentice Shizune whom she took with her outside of the village. Years ago from the Leaf Village, apprentices stay by their master's side at all times when traveling together, and I do not see the woman in this room, so therefore, the real Senju Tsunade is not really here. Not that it matters, even if you somehow manage to factor in all these different things into trying to deceive me. My sensory power would detect the difference between Senju Tsunade's own unique energy signature and that of this woman impersonating her, answered Baragan with many in the room flinching at the obvious clues they either missed in noticing themselves or didn't cover when trying to deceive him. Damn it, thought Danzo, as he had suggested this move when Tsunade didn't show up, and they were pressed for time with the Hokage coming up with the plan to deceive Baragan. Where's Tsunade? Why isn't she here? Surely you told her to come back to Konoha immediately, Hokage-sama questioned Inoichi in a pressing tone. I tried reaching her, Inoichi, but she has not responded to my message, or given any indication of her return to Konoha, answered Hiruzen with the clan heads looking devastated before looking at Baragan to see what the former Espada and Hollow King would do next. Well, that certainly puts you all in a predicament now, doesn't it? Questioned Baragan with his smile increasing and a chuckle leaving his mouth. Baragan-sama, surely the presence of one the requested Sannin is enough to give us some kind of extension to bring Tsunade back to Konoha, stated Hayashi with the former Espada letting out a growl of sorts while thinking it over, and looking at the fox's head on the top of his cane, as if he was talking to it and hearing its advice on the matter. I suppose that having one of them here is worth some form of extension to motivate you to finding the other, remarked Baragan slowly while thinking it over. We will ensure Senju Tsunade comes back here in 2 weeks, stated Danzo in a taking charge tone before Baragan stomped his cane down on the ground and shook the room with his power. Do not dictate the extension for me in my place, old fool. I will be dictating the extension time for when you are to have Tsunade returned here to face my judgment. As for the extension itself, you have 1 week to bring the woman back here. No more, no less. If she isn't here in 1 week from now at this time, I will unleash my full power on this village, and the last thing you all see in your last moments of life is the true face of death, stated Baragan before he got up from his chair and began walking out of the room. Wait, Jiraiya called out to the entity inhabiting his godson's body. What is it, Jiraiya of the Sannin? I have very little patience for a lowly worm such as you, and I do not want my time wasted, remarked Baragan with Jiraiya looking a bit ticked at that. I want to talk to my godson. Bring Naruto's consciousness out so I can talk to him, said Jiraiya in an almost demanding tone. Almost. No, was Baragan's response. Do it now, demanded Jiraiya angrily, with Baragan looking even more displeased at the man's disrespect. And why would I even consider listening to a proudly self-proclaimed super pervert like yourself, who abandoned his godson for research? That is the term your late student's memories of what you call peeping in hot springs is called, if I remember correctly, said Baragan with Jiraiya sucking air in through his teeth. I was hunting down my former teammate turned traitor to the village, countered Jiraiya with Baragan scoffing. Yes, or Chimaru if the memories of him are correct? Such a disgusting human. And yet you could have visited the boy countless times in the last 12 years. Why didn't you? Why not visit your godson? Surely you must have been curious in regards to his well-being, questioned Baragan with Jiraiya not answering. I told Jiraiya the boy was fine, that he shouldn't worry about Naruto, and leave me in charge of him, answered the Shodaime Hokage with Baragan sneering at him. And you did such a wonderful job in doing just that, with all the abuse you put my heir through. It was remarkable the boy didn't try to kill himself sooner or unseal the Kyuubi from its cage in a blind attempt at revenge, remarked Baragan, with the Hokage not able to look him in the eyes any longer. Naruto wouldn't do that, exclaimed Jiraiya defiantly at Baragan, and saw the former Espada smirking at him. And how would you know the boy wouldn't do that? How would you know that Naruto would have remained strong under such horrible abuse? You couldn't know that for certain, or that the boy wouldn't even consider the idea. Not unless you were keeping tabs on him, that you knew of his abuse, and did nothing. Accused. Baragan with the Sanin jolting his head back like he had been struck. What? That's absurd. Empty accusations without a shred of proof, stated Jiraiya, while Baragan snarled at him. Is it? Countered Baragan in a heated tone with Jiraiya looking him right in the eyes. It is, answered Jiraiya with Baragan raising his left hand, and made everyone dive behind something to shield themselves from the impending attack. Instead, all they heard a simple sound of fingers snapping, and a hole filled with darkness opened up behind the former Hollow King before the entity reached into it to pull a terror-filled man from the hole. Within moments, the hole closed, and the shocked people in the room looked at the new individual shaking in fear while looking up at the red-haired boy responsible for it. Everyone meet Yoshi. Yoshi, meet the governing body of Konoha. I take it you already know Jiraiya of the Sanin considering you report to him about things here in Konoha, said Baragan with the terrified man now identified as Yoshi nodded. One of Jiraiya's spies was here in Konoha? Questioned Shibi with Baragan. Nodding. Yes. Yoshi here was given one simple order by Jiraiya, to watch and observe his only godson until his return to Konoha, whereupon learning of the boy's past would he be properly molded into a willing to learn for almost any price for a student. To be molded into a student worthy of his attention, as if being your student's only son wasn't enough to get it, answered Baragan with Jiraiya seething in anger. At this, is this true Yoshi-san? Asked Hayashi with the man nodding weakly. Why yes. Jiraiya-sama approached me a few days after the Kyuubi attack in Konoha. He provided money and the deed to a house to live in while I observed Uzumaki Naruto for an unknown determined amount of time while recording his life. I wasn't allowed to interfere in the child's development in any shape or form while reporting to Jiraiya what I knew from my observations of Uzumaki Naruto, answered Yoshi while Jiraiya clenched his fists, so Jiraiya could manipulate him further in case the Sandaime was unable to or failed in molding the boy into a weapon, stated Inoichi with Yoshi nodding. Yes, he told me that knowing how the boy was treated would help him determine what to do when the time came to teach Uzumaki Naruto. His plan was to eventually teach the boy very little when the time came, but make the things that were being taught seem like a big deal to keep the child hooked, and enforce the teacher-student relationship, replied Yoshi with Jiraiya getting angrier with each passing second. Did he say why? For what purpose? His reason? Asked Baragan with Yoshi shaking his head. I don't know, answered Yoshi with Baragan taking a quick step forward. Are you sure? Questioned Baragan with Yoshi sweating a little. Yes, repeated Yoshi with a hint of fear in his voice at being so close to the former Espada. Are you sure? Questioned Baragan with his face an inch from the terrified man. Yes, I swear I don't know why, exclaimed Yoshi fearfully while curling up in a ball and whimpering at Baragan's feet. Is that enough proof? Asked Baragan with Jiraiya glaring daggers at him. The boy is an important asset to this world. I needed to make sure that when I trained him that he would learn at the pace I set, answered Jiraiya angrily. Was it the same pace you set for your late student? Countered Baragan with Jiraiya not answering. What did you mean when you said the boy is an important asset for this world, Jiraiya? Asked Kaharu with Jiraiya not looking away from Baragan. The toads know of a prophecy of a child who will either revolutionize or destroy the shinobi world as we know it. The child in question was, or is meant to be, my student. I first thought it would be the Yondaime, but after he died along with his wife and left only his son, answered Jiraiya with the implication of his unfinished sentence sinking in. You believed Uzumaki Naruto to be the child of prophecy, stated Hayashi with Jiraiya nodding while Baragan sneered at him. And no doubt you shared this little piece of information with the Tsunade Hokage behind you? The two of you talked and conspired together on what to do next. All the while the people are wondering what happened to the Kyuubi no Kitsune after its sudden disappearance. You, along with the Sandaime, being the greedy humans that you are, decided to control the boy and the prophecy in general, since it wouldn't be that hard to control the development of an infant growing into adulthood. Jiraiya comes along later in his life, trains him, and influences him along with a decision on what to do with the shinobi way as you know it, revolutionize, or destroy. Decisions? The trouble with prophecies is that they can be misread or misinterpreted when foretold to people. That's why the unwritten rule on how they are never to be influenced is in place for just this sort of reason. It kind of imposes the grasp of free will and making choices, added Baragan while he walked over the quivering body of Yoshi and moved towards Jiraiya. What are you talking about? Questioned Jiraiya with Baragan shaking his head. Isn't it obvious? When you heard that the student of yours could possibly destroy the shinobi way of life as it is now known, you panicked because you first believed it would mean the end not only for the shinobi way of life as you know it, but it Could possibly destroy the shinobi villages too? All the shinobi villages, am I? Right, accused Baragan with Jiraiya's eyes wavering slightly. So what if I did interpret that? I had a duty to Konoha as one of its shinobi too. Protect it from all threats no matter the cost. That includes prophecies, answered Jiraiya with some of the civilian council nodding, and the shinobi council agreeing. With that statement? So you tried to manipulate the boy surrounding the prophecy so that in the event he does decide to destroy the shinobi way of life, and the villages, Naruto spares Konoha so the village is left unopposed in being the dominant force in the world. Deduced Baragan while seeing Jiraiya nor the Hokage denying it? Interesting plan you created for the Kyuubi Jinchuriki, my rival, your student, being a key influence on the boy should your life end without solidifying your influence on him? To influence a prophecy to your liking could make one seem godly, thought Danzo while wishing he had a hand in it. Konoha is the strongest of all 5 shinobi villages. We needed to ensure it stayed that way, argued Jiraiya with Baragan frowning at him. There are less idiotic ways, fool, like raising the boy properly, treating him with the respect he rightfully deserved, making sure the public knows the difference between the fox and the jailer and that they are 2 separate entities. Or perhaps, tell them of how the Kyuubi first manifested itself, and why it went on a rampage in the first place, countered Baragan with each point being made was soon followed by his cane striking the floor, and each strike shaking the room violently. You're only saying that because you are in the boy's body and therefore you are clearly biased. Would you say these things if you weren't? Challenged Jiraiya with Baragan smirking at him. Probably not, but I wouldn't disrespect him either. If anything, he would be praised for what he was, and enduring this village's cruelty. In any case, I know your former student is not happy to hear of your neglect and manipulations regarding his son, not to mention Kushina herself would very much like to have a word with you and everyone else in this room responsible for her boy's suffering, answered Baragan with Jiraiya looking angry at the mention of his dead student. Leave him out of this, said Jiraiya in a threatening tone. Why should I leave him out of this? Unless of course I hit a nerve and, you blamed Naruto for your student's death, didn't you? Accused Baragan with Jiraiya, clenched his fists tightly to the point where he was drawing blood. Shut up, said Jiraiya while hating the fact things spiraled out of control so fast and he had underestimated this thing inside Naruto. I figured as much. It must have made the guilt you felt betraying your student, his wife, and your godson lessen knowing you would get some meager revenge against the fox, remarked Baragan with the Sannin in front of him looking livid. Shut up, exclaimed Jiraiya while forming a Rasengan in his hand while Baragan just ignored him. Do you know what it is actually funny to me, Jiraiya of the Sannin? The fact that none of the abuse this village gave Naruto hurt the fox. Not once was he hurt by it. No once. The memories I have of Kyuubi show he was actually laughing at your misguided attempts to hurt him, calling you all foolish and stupid for hurting the warden to get to the prisoner, laughing for hours on end at how you all tried to make him suffer and how you had all failed miserably. That is what I find funny in all of this, Jiraiya. Years of abuse on the boy to make the fox suffer while trying to manipulate him into being your tool, and it was all for nothing, stated Baragan just before he let out a laugh, and it was cruel laugh at that. Shut up and die, Rasengan, exclaimed Jiraiya in anger as he thrust the orb into the face of his godson, and everyone was blinded by the light from the energy. Did he get him? Did Jiraiya kill that vile monster? Asked one member of the civilian council hopefully while seeing only smoke in front of Jiraiya currently hiding the end results of his attack. No, he did not get me, came the cold voice of Baragan before a hand came out of the smoke and grabbed Jiraiya's extended arm, snap, and breaking it violently with the greatest of ease. A-A-A-H-H, screamed Jiraiya as he fell to his knees, his arm dangling at an odd angle. It looked like a piece of his arm was missing something inside, or had just shriveled up with blood dripping from the hand of his godson currently being used by the former Espada. Your arm is useless now. Even your former teammate will have a hard time healing your arm since all the bones I broke are now brittle and are the size of pebbles. I estimate you have exactly 1 week before that arm is lost and will need to be amputated. All the more reason to find Senju Tsunade and bring her back here too. Konoha whether she likes it or not, stated Baragan before he left the room. Konoha Academy the next day? Iruka sighed heavily, his eyes showing how tired he was right now, as he looked over the tests he had given the genin he just graduated from the academy, and just wished this nightmare would end. After what happened with Naruto with the history of the boy being abused, which he felt stupid for not seeing, or possibly on a subconscious level refused to see, had gone back to look at the records for the boy and every other student there. The fact Naruto was sabotaged by Mizuki so easily made Iruka believe it had happened since the boy was attending the academy from the start, and also suspected some foul play in the handling of the other students too. The results were not encouraging. As suspected, Naruto had been sabotaged from the start of his shinobi training, the very first day in fact, and possibly from the second he entered his first classroom. The other teachers at the academy were not fond of the boy and made it known even now despite what was happening to the village. Iruka, however, was also concerned with how they had altered things just to ensure Uchiha Sasuke was the Rookie of the Year, and had done more than altering tests. Little side notes were even made in the Taijutsu section of the programs to indicate who should be allowed to win, and who should be put down. Naruto had marks on all the pages with orders to beat within an inch of his demonic life, while Sasuke was marked as let him win no matter what. To his own, the same was said for test scores, as some teachers had forged Naruto's handwriting to add incorrect answers to his paper, and did the opposite for Sasuke's tests. The only reason Iruka didn't notice it sooner was because Mizuki had been the one handling the tests and grading the pile that held tests for both boys. Some of the other students had been marked that way too, mostly civilian council members to ensure their kids get passing grades, but also some of the clan heirs to no doubt have some form of political favoring from their parents should the need arise in the future. No doubt in the event someone who actually cared for Naruto on a genuine level brought this evidence of cheating to light. Not that it mattered since the clan heads had already thought the same way as him, and had asked for an immediate inquiry into the matter since the whole incident with Naruto being possessed by the former Hollow King. Any boy who was dead last at the Shinobi Academy, and capable of getting the forbidden scroll of sealing from the vault clearly had skills that were not viewed at the school. It made the clan heads wonder what else they had missed or ignored, not only in regards to the former Kyuubi Jinchuriki, but of the education of their own offspring as well. Hence the inquiry. When Iruka brought them to one big conference yesterday after the incident with Jiraiya, who was at the hospital while the Hokage tried to get a message to Tsunade to come back to Konoha, it had made several parents angry at hearing this, and they made that known to him in their own way. Inuzuka Itsum growled, foaming mouth when she heard the news, and looked ready to go rabid any moment. Aburame Shibi felt it was illogical for the instructors to tamper with tests and teachings to ensure too other students would be put into different positions to appease certain higher-ups. Choza didn't like how one of the teachers deliberately beat down his son just to, quote, beat the fat out of the pudgy kid, and hope it turns into muscle after all. The bruises heal if the remark on the Taijutsu portion of the test was any indicator. Poor Shikaku got hit hard with the frying pan, somehow manifesting itself out of nowhere by his wife since she blamed him for not keeping a better eye on their son, while she was busy all day with housework. As it stood, none of the clan heads were happy, and demanded something be done to correct this insult to their children's education. The answer, taking a crash course in everything they were taught about being shinobi, and then some in the span of a few months. By the time Naruto was ready to awaken from his own form of learning to rejoin the rest of the world, the genins that graduated from the academy would finally be ready to properly graduate too. The clan heads were all in agreement with that, as was Baragan when Iruka came to visit the former Espada after the meeting to discuss it with him, since the boy he possessed would need to interact with kids his age. Granted, they wouldn't be strong enough to compete with Naruto, but they could at least get to know him, and Iruka did hope they would form bonds with the boy too, bring about a lasting friendship. Baragan felt that was acceptable, and would even make sure that Naruto would be there to take a test of his own when the time came so he could graduate properly. With the other genin in his class, Iruka, what are you doing here so late? Questioned Suzume, as she entered his empty classroom to see her fellow academy instructor looking over the information in front of him. Oh, sorry Suzume, I was just looking over all the information I've been gathering for the past week on the recently graduated class, and what to do when we have to give them a crash course and everything plus additional stuff. I was thinking of having some of the other shinobi we have come in and perform some form of test in the field they are experts in, like Mato Guy for Taijutsu and Yuhi Kurne for Jinjutsu. I would ask for Hatake Kakashi for Ninjutsu, but the man is still in the hospital, and his rumored past history with Naruto being a touchy subject too, answered Iruka, while possibly looking to another shinobi, and going so far as to recruit Matarashianko since she could help in weeding out the fangirls that would no doubt use this second chance to impress their Sasuke-kun, since everyone in the class has to retake it just to be sure. Personally, I never thought much of the boy, always running around in his filthy, kill me, orange clothing, eating nothing but ramen all day, and the way he eats Makes you sick to your stomach, replied Suzume with Iruka shooting her a glare. Considering he raised himself all this time, his table manners aren't that bad. And the clothing he wears was the only thing shops would sell him. They deliberately gave him bright clothing to make Naruto a very big target they would have a hard time missing, Iruka countered with Suzume letting out a huff. Yes, well, even still at his age, a boy like that should be taught proper discipline, and be given a good smack to ensure he behaved properly. The fact it hasn't worked means no one has smacked the boy hard enough, remarked Suzume with Iruka's eyes narrowing. That boy has been hit hard enough, and long enough to the point where it needs to stop, Suzume. In fact, it shouldn't have started at all, and the fact you condone it makes me question your ability to teach here, stated Iruka with Suzume looking like she had just been struck. You have some nerve to say that to me. I teach a kunoichi to blend in with the crowd, to act like a normal girl, and how to be a proper lady. Unlike some kunoichi, in Konoha, I carry myself with a sense of sophistication and respect that all women should strive to achieve, countered Suzume with Iruka raising an eyebrow at her. And by some kunoichi, you are referring simply to Materashi Anko, answered Iruka, with Suzume letting out a huff yet again while looking away. So what if I am? She is a vile woman. Has no sense of manners? She's almost as bad as the Uzumaki brat, in fact, in terms of clothing, if not worse. At least the boy wears clothes that cover his entire body, and not something demeaning like a fishnet shirt that barely hides the rest of the upper body, countered Suzume with Iruka, trying to fight the blush that wanted to rise up because of the image the woman here put of the Anko in his head. Anko is good at her job, Suzume. You shouldn't care about her attire, replied Iruka with a sigh, and running his hand through his hair. It's not just Anko's sense of work attire, it's her former teacher too, and his mark he left on her. You know the one, added Suzume with Iruka scowling further. That's unfair. That's like condemning Naruto for holding Kyuubi, countered Iruka, with Suzume shrugging her shoulders. So what if it is? Both are tainted, Iruka. Naruto even more so now due to that vile and ghastly Baragan in his body instead of Kyuubi, replied Suzume with Iruka, gritting his teeth. And we aren't in some manner human beings as a whole, much less most of those in this village haven't exactly got a spotless record, Suzume. We've done horrible things to Naruto, and never once batted an eyelash of regret or sympathy towards him. Don't go judging someone just because you think they're lower than you in life, until you've had a good hard look at yourself in the mirror, remarked Iruka with Suzume letting out an angry huff, and decided to leave. Fine, be that way, but mark my words, Iruka, the boy is going to become an even bigger monster after that Baragan creature works his magic on him. And we can only hope that Anko doesn't catch his eye. The last thing anyone needs is those two being together, or Kami forbid it, producing offspring, replied Suzume with her face going a tad green like the idea would make the woman want to vomit. Go, Suzume, I have a lot of work to do and I can't be bothered anymore by such a prim and proper kunoichi like yourself, remarked Iruka sarcastically in his voice, with the woman leaving with another angry huff as she left. With the rookies? You mean we have to take the tests again? Because of Naruto? This is crap, exclaimed Kiba, as he just got out of the academy and wanted to kick some shinobi ass now that the graduation was over. Now he had to go back and do it all over again. Not from what my father has informed me when he returned from speaking with Iruka. Sensei, I believe the term we should use to describe our situation is being cheated, since that was what was found when it came to our various tests being scored by the instructors marking us, remarked Shino while he saw Kiba grit his teeth, and Shikamaru sighing. Troublesome. I knew that things were going to be bad when Mom came home dragging Dad into the house with multiple bandaged lumps on his head. Though from what my Mom told me during her ranting about making sure I was trained into the ground, only one of us benefited from all of this, added Shikamaru while glancing over at Sasuke, who let out a scoff, and brooding in silence until now. It doesn't matter. Even on your best day, I could handle all of you. And a few tweaks on tests won't make that much of a difference here, said Sasuke arrogantly. This isn't about tweaking a few tests. Ours were cleverly altered along with yours, for different purposes. And it wasn't just a few. It was all of them. All the tests we ever took were tampered with, so the end results for our overall progress are tainted. That's why we have to take everything over again in the span of a few months, and even learn new stuff the academy didn't teach us. Though who they plan to use for that, I have no clue. But I suspect it's people who are experts in each field, concluded Shikamaru, with Sasuke listening to the last part about additional training, since it meant getting stronger and that's what he wanted above all else. What about Naruto? Is he going to be joining us? I heard he's been, well, indisposed of for the time being, asked Chaji, who was munching on chips and, seeing his friend shrug his shoulders, Hinata merely blushed at the mention of Naruto while Kiba scowled along with Sasuke and Sakura. Aino was unresponsive for once, as she didn't expect to be put into an arranged marriage unless it was with Sasuke, and her father had to explain in painful detail on why this had to happen. Who cares about the baka? I don't. So annoying asking me out all the time. If he spent half as much time paying attention in class as he did on me, the baka wouldn't be the dead last of the academy, remarked Sakura with Shikamaru shaking his head at her statement, and Shino's bugs were buzzing in annoyance to her words, while Hinata scowled. Sakura, in case you haven't noticed yet, Naruto's tests were altered too, and for the sole purpose of making him seem like a failure to everyone. Truth is, if he had parents, or had a teacher to help him do things properly combined with fair grading, done properly with the instructors not being biased, I have no doubts he would have been Rookie of the Year instead of Sasuke, replied Shikamaru with Sasuke looking livid by those words, and got in the Nara's face. You want to say that again, Nara? Demanded Sasuke with Shikamaru not looking away from the Uchiha. It's true, Sasuke. Everyone has pampered you up until now while Naruto got the shaft in just about everything, yet he has the most potential. I've calculated the odds in my head since this little meeting of our began. Naruto would have outclassed you easily, like the Kyuubi outclasses all other Bijou, replied Shikamaru with Sasuke moving to punch the boy, but was stopped by the hand of an adult, and looking up they saw it was a familiar face. That's enough from all of you. Go on home except you, Kiba, commanded Tsume while the other kids, minus Kiba, left since it was clear the woman wanted to talk to her son and make sure he didn't do anything stupid and provoking Naruto. Her son didn't like the idea of his sister marrying Naruto regardless of Uzumaki's now known unique pedigree. What is it, Mom? It's bad enough I have to go back to the academy again, but Naruto is going to marry Hana. Did I do something in a past life to deserve this? The guy was dead last at the academy? Do you know how embarrassing that is for me? You, Hana, the clan? Asked Kiba with Tsume scowling at her son and growling slightly at his stupidity. First off, the boy's education was sabotaged. Far worse than yours was, I might add. And your scores were just barely above Nara Shikamaru, who was the second lowest in the class. The only reason he wasn't the dead last instead of Naruto, or possibly you, was due to his test scores making up for his lazy nature, countered Tsume. While not believing the Uzumaki Gaki was that bad despite the pranks pulled, she still couldn't figure out how Naruto defaced the Hokage monument during the day, in front of the eyes of the general village populace and wearing an orange jumpsuit. Then again, if the Nara clan was stumped on the matter, it was probably best that the question be left unanswered. He hanged himself into a naked girl during the transformation test, added Kiba, with Tsume's eyebrow ticking slightly. Okay, that, Tsume would admit, was a bit bad, but considering the results got the male instructor to topple over wasn't bad, and was an unorthodox jutsu to say the least, even if she as a woman had a disapproving view on the matter. Still, it had an unforeseen factor added to the mix, and could be useful in getting out of jam if surrounded by male-only enemy shinobi, and maybe a few secretly bisexual or lesbian kunoichi too. That aside, Kiba, this arrangement for Hana to marry Naruto in the distant future is not something we can stop, nor should we try, since the village as a whole would suffer, and I do mean as a whole. I assume you heard the stories circulating through the village about Baragan-sama, stated Tsume with Kiba nodding while looking away slightly. Yes, answered Kiba, since it was kind of hard not to hear them. Well, they're all true for the most part. Hayashi's own father died not that long ago after making a fuss over Hinata being branded with the Hyuga clan's thrice damned cage bird seal on her, among other things. Jiraiya-sama's arm and shinobi career is in serious jeopardy because of his actions against Naruto, who I'm sure you heard is rumored to be the Sanin's godson. That's also true, and so is the bastard not looking in on Naruto once in the last 12 years during the boys' suffering. Imagine what Baragan-sama will do to us, or what Naruto will do when he awakens from within his mind and finds out you decided to make unnecessary waves on the matter, replied Tsume with Kiba snarling slightly, but he relented and decided to let the matter drop for now. And the situation with Hinata-chan? Asked Kiba with Tsume raising an eyebrow at him. Hinata-chan, when did you have such an interest in the Hyuga girl? The Hokage had hinted at putting the two of you on a team with the Aburame kid, but as far as I know, you have never been interactive with the girl, questioned Tsume with Kiba looking away, and it was clear there was more than friendship there. So, I can't show concern for my girl? Asked Kiba suddenly with Tsume grinning in a feral manner, and it was clear he slipped up. Your girl? Since when did my son form a crush? Tsume questioned with Kiba, blushing and looking away with anger on his face to match his embarrassment. It's more than that. She's mine, my future mate, I can feel it in my blood, replied Kiba with Tsume still not looking convinced. And does the girl you feel this way for also feel the same way? Asked Tsume with Kiba sighing. No. Hinata has her eyes locked on Narutobaka, and she gets all red in the face, before fainting when she is in close contact with him, answered Kiba before being hit on the head by his mother. Don't refer to Naruto that way again? His lineage is top-grade pedigree since he is the son of the Yondami and Uzumaki Kushina. The Uzumaki clan were nothing to sneeze at back at the height of their power, and it took 3 major shinobi villages to defeat them. 3, they numbered a few hundred, but they made up for their lack of quantity with quality in their skills, and Namikaze Minato was the Shodaime Hokage for a reason. Kiba? He had a flea on sight order in the bingo book? Thanks to his actions in killing so many Iwa shinobi in the last war. The fact Naruto didn't do well at the academy was not his fault, and deep down you know it. Kiba. Perhaps Hinata saw what no one else did or even refused to try seeing in the first place when it came to the boy, said Tsume was glaring at her son, and saw the boy was rubbing his head while not liking the fact Hinata had eyes on Naruto. I still don't like it, mumbled Kiba with Tsume rolling her eyes. Look, I'm sure in time, Hinata will come to like you, Kiba, but as a friend only, and she will be a valuable teammate to have in the distant future if you are still paired with her when the genin teams are being made, said Tsume with Kiba frowning. Further, I don't care if they are going to have an arranged marriage. I'm going to prove to Hinata that she deserves to be mine. She is my prize, my future mate, my future bitch, thought Kiba while intending to outshine Naruto before the boy awakened. In the months that followed their education, Konoha Bank with Baragan? Do you know who I am? Asked Baragan while he sat in front of the very nervous bank manager with the sound of utter contempt clear in his voice while moving his cane ever so slightly with his fingers. Why yes, Baragan-sama, replied the shaking bank manager, who from the name on the desk was named Sasaki Toshi, and knew of the reputation the former Espada made for himself since inhabiting Naruto's body. And you know of the person whom I am currently possessing? Questioned Baragan, with the man nodding quickly. Yes, Baragan-sama? Word has traveled fast around Konoha about you and the boy. It always does when it comes to important matters, replied Toshi while seeing a few of the people in the bank looking at them through the window of his office. So you know that I am here to inspect financial bank records pertaining to the Uzumaki and Namikaze clan to be more precise, stated Baragan with Toshi squirming slightly under his gaze. Yes, it is just, we weren't expecting you so soon. I know you have other affairs around the village and I assumed your business here would be minor, replied Toshi with the former Espada not appeased by the nervous smile he was being given. I was looking over official bank records while at the Namikaze estates that were being held there 12 years ago to the statements given to me recently per my request I made to the Hokage. To be perfectly straightforward with you, Toshi-san, the numbers do not add up, and I think you know why, stated Baragan firmly. And while he wasn't a genius with numbers, the former Espada lived long enough to do math, accounting, and knew when someone was cooking financial numbers that would leave a bad taste in the mouth of the one who owned the accounts. Roman I might, replied Toshi before jumping when Baragan tapped his cane loudly on the ground, having heard the stories of what the former Espada could do with just that cane, but was fortunate that nothing bad happened when it did. And yet it was clear the entity possessing Uzumaki Naruto was not happy. You might. That's not exactly a ringing endorsement to me in regards to your value. In the terms of your life being spared my wrath, it would be better for everyone if I just killed you now and talked to your successor. I'm sure he would be more cooperative when I asked him questions about these financial indiscretions, threatened Baragan with the man in front of him letting out a small squeak of protest. No, that's quite all right. I do know why the numbers are off, to be blunt. But you must understand that I didn't want to do it, and was forced to do it by higher forces than myself, answered Toshi quickly with Baragan nodding though it was clear this news displeased him. Explain it to me, and do it fast, demanded Baragan with Toshi nodding quickly. Yes, of course. About 12 years ago, a few months before the Kyuubi's attack, I was promoted to bank manager for my previous years of devoted and loyal service to my profession when it comes to managing money. I've always had a skill for it, and my services were always praised for what I could do. After things died down, I was suddenly approached by the newly reinstated Shodaime Hokage and his former student Jiraiya of the Sannin. They told me that I was to redirect certain funds from both the Namikaze and Uzumaki clan accounts in a discreet manner to another account. They didn't tell me why they were targeting these two accounts, or why they wanted this done in the first place. They said if I didn't, they would accuse me of treason, lock me away, and I wouldn't see daylight until I was an old man. I couldn't risk saying no. I wasn't in any position to resist what they were asking of me, stated Toshi with Baragan snarling slightly. Do you have access to this other account they asked you to pilfer funds into when they first arrived? Asked Baragan with Toshi nodding. Yes, the account falls under my direct control in transferring funds into it, but they stopped draining funds from the Namikaze and Uzumaki accounts roughly 4 years ago. But the third account has been slowly gaining interest since then, and has become quite a lump sum, answered Toshi with Baragan's eyes narrowing. Good. Two can't play this game. Reverse the flow of money that was being sent to that third account back the Namikaze and Uzumaki accounts. The extra money earned during that time will also be added to each account equally, and you won't notify the Hokage of your actions when it's done until a few days pass, stated Baragan, with Toshi going pale in the face at the mention of the Hokage. But Baragan-sama, the Hokage will have me arrested and executed for treason, exclaimed Toshi with Baragan standing up and flared his power in front of the very frightened the man a few years out of his life. The Hokage will be the least of your worries should you disobey me, Toshi-san. I am a far greater enemy than the Shodaime Hokage ever will be to you in any given situation. Do as I ask, or die with those that will be dead soon once Tsunade returns to the leaf, countered Baragan with Toshi looking at him in shock. Tsunade-sama is returning to Konoha? I thought she vowed never to return after she lost all those close to her, questioned Toshi with Baragan letting out a chuckle. She has one more person left in this village, even if the woman has no idea yet of that fact, remarked Baragan before leaving the office, and the shocked man slumping in his chair. Hokage Tower several days later? This better be good, sensei. First you send one of your summons to find me and deliver an important message that according to the chimp I should read immediately, which I destroyed since I had no intentions of returning for whatever stupid reason you may have had to call me back. Second, I get another later from the same chimp, telling me to open this one in its presence, and that the message I get in the scroll is barely readable writing saying to come back to Konoha with all being explained. Well, explain, demanded Tsunade at the top of her lungs. As she marched to the door, her assistant Shizune was quivering behind her with the pet pig doing the same, and just watched the very short-tempered woman kick the door open to the Hokage's office, only to see the old Hokage that was her sensei and her former teammate Jiraiya, who, she noted, was injured, having a defeated look on their faces. There is a valid reason for your return, Senju Tsunade. Sit down next to me so the old fool here that is your sensei and your former teammate can explain it to you properly, came the surprisingly mature voice of a boy with red hair and a pair of scars on his face, wearing strange regal clothing, sitting in a chair opposite of the Hokage. Who are you? Questioned Tsunade while walking over to the boy, who had this look in his eyes that told her this kid was mature beyond his years, and to be cautious should she decide to provoke him. Sit, please, commanded Baragan with Tsunade finding herself obeying the order. What is going on? What was so important that you had to command me back here under threat of using Konoha shinobi to do it? Questioned Tsunade with both the Hokage and Jiraiya shifted nervously. Tsunade, listen to me before you jump to any conclusions about what I'm about to say to you, and that I only did it because, began Hiruzen before Baragan's spiritual pressure made itself known. Do not tell her excuses to your actions, Hiruzen. Tell her the truth and tell it now, or I will end without holding back the slightest detail that resulted from your actions, said Baragan in a threatening tone that left no room for arguments or compromise. What? What action? What the hell is going on? Demanded Tsunade while looking between them and wondering what it is that has her sensei nervous, with Jiraiya having a fearful look on his face, the same kind he had on his face when Tsunade caught him peeping on her in the hot springs and beat the Sannin within an inch of his life. Tell me, Senju Tsunade, what exactly do you know of your godson? A one Uzumaki? Naruto, questioned Baragan with Tsunade frowning at him, and then looking at the Hokage. He's dead. My sensei and Jiraiya told me the ceiling took too much out of the boy, and the fox killed him with its chakra. A final insult before its death that also resulted from the ceiling? Why? Answered Tsunade while seeing the Hokage flinch, and Jiraiya now eyeing the window with calculating eyes on how long it would take for him to make a mad dash through it. Tsunade, what I told you before you left 12 years ago was a lie, said the Hokage, with Tsunade's eyes widening in shock before they narrowed. A lie? Questioned Tsunade with a hint of anger in her voice. Yes, a lie. A lie I told in a moment of weakness, answered Hiruzen before a sound from Naruto's throat made by Baragan was made. It was hardly a moment of weakness, Hiruzen, not with the company you have been keeping since that day you were reinstated, remarked Baragan with Hiruzen looking away for a second. Okay, it wasn't a moment of weakness, but the loss I suffered was key to agreeing with Jiraiya that you should be lied to about Naruto's existence, countered Hiruzen with the woman in front of him leaking killer intent at him. Why lie? Why keep him from me? Why? Demanded Tsunade while nearly rising from her chair as she looked at him with angry eyes. Simply put, they wanted control over Naruto. They wanted to control him, the Kyuubi, and more importantly, they tried to manipulate a prophecy. Something that no one in their right mind, whether they are human, hollow, demon, or god, should be doing even in the slightest. Something these two morons here thought they could get around on account of one being labeled the kami of shinobi, and the other being a so-called sage, answered Baragan with Tsunade looking at him again, then back at the other two, and then again at him. Just who are you exactly and how do you even know all of this? Asked Tsunade with the boy's face turning up in a small smile. My name is Barragan Lausenbern. I am the former Hollow King of Hueco Mundo, but, more importantly, I am also the new and temporary guest within your godson's body. That sits before you until the two of us merge into one, answered Baragan with Tsunade now looking shocked and scared at the same time before she narrowed her eyes at him. Get out of my godson's body, now, demanded Tsunade while she slightly cocked her fist back to do some damage, and hoped Naruto would forgive her for it later. That's not possible. The seal that held Kyuubi is doing its job on me. Something else that needs to be explained, and what has happened in your godson's life that these two have allowed to happen after you left 12 years ago, answered Baragan, with Tsunade pausing in her right hand's subtle movement and turned to look at her former sensei. What happened to my godson while I was away drowning in my sorrows? What did you two Bacchus do to Naruto? What did this shinobi village, my grandfather's village, do to him? Answer me, demanded Tsunade with Baragan smiling fully now. I'll tell you, Tsunade-san, and when I'm done telling you every single detail of suffering your godson endured for 12 years of his life, you can decide whether or not they deserve to die quickly or slowly, replied Baragan with a cruel chuckle, leaving his mouth. I'm listening intently, said Tsunade, as she blocked out everything and everyone else around her while Baragan explained everything to Tsunade in methodical fashion. The former Hollow King wasn't lying when he said there would be no sparing in detail of the suffering Naruto endured from the boy's memories, and even about the soul fragments of Naruto's parents inside of him, each acting as a fail-safe to keep the fox at bay as a last resort. How they were in him right now for the moment, being parents to the boy, making up for 12 long years of unintentional neglect, and giving the child the love long deserved before they were to be devoured into him. How they were displeased by Konoha's cruel betrayal, not to mention the Shodaime Hokage and Jiraiya betraying them, since neither of the two saw it coming. By the time it was over, Tsunade couldn't restrain the killer intent, and let it fill the room while glaring daggers at the two people she thought could be trusted with her life. After hearing everything Baragan just told her, Tsunade knew now that if she couldn't trust them with Naruto's well-being, then she couldn't them at all, and wouldn't be surprised if they had considered having a special team on standby to kill her in the event she ever did return to Konoha to find Naruto very much alive. Tsunade, please listen, I pleaded Hiruzen, but the old man's words were ignored, and could only see the blonde-haired woman looking livid. Listen, like I listened to you the day before I left Konoha. Listen to the lie you spun about the boy being dead? I was weeping for months and even years after I foolishly believed that lie you told me. Weeping over the loss of a godson who wasn't dead, but probably wished he had been. And don't say that's not true. I've heard all the stories from other shinobi villages, and how they treated their own Jinchuriki with little to no civility, countered Tsunade with a fury in her voice that made the Hokage and Jiraiya sense, knowing she was right. Hence why Kyuubi's last two chosen Jinchuriki were not known to the rest of the village for that reason alone, stated Baragan with Tsunade nodding with her eyes closed now, with her anger ready to explode. You know, a part of me actually thought that I should be glad my godson's dead so he wouldn't have to face such a possible life in Konoha, despite the fact I would sooner burn the Leaf Village down than let anyone harm him. Now I find myself back here, listening to the truth, and the events that have followed it because of your arrogance and stupidity. The only reason I don't make Konoha a crater right now is because Baragan-sama here has already set terms I find fitting, with one exception, I wish to add, said Tsunade with Baragan raising an eyebrow at her. Oh, what condition do you wish to add? Asked Baragan curiously. It's clear to me that my sensei is no longer qualified or trusted to be Hokage of the Leaf Village. To further ensure this never happens on my watch again and ensuring that I can close to Naruto as possible, I am going to take up the mantle of Hokage, answered a determined Tsunade with both Jiraiya and Sarutobi Hiruzen now looking shocked by this news. Baragan just thought it over for a second before nodding. Agreed. Plus, I'm sure Naruto would love to meet someone with Uzumaki blood in their veins on your grandmother's side, replied Baragan, since the fox's memories told him that much, along with his own brief time in the hands of Hashirama before being sealed away. Now wait a minute. Tsunade just can't take the mantle of Hokage just like that. Sensei is still physically fit and his mind is still sharp. If you want to take the mantle of Hokage from him, Tsunade, then you better be ready to fight for it. And in front of witnesses too, stated Jiraiya, with Tsunade grabbing him by the collar of his shirt. Gladly. I'm more than ready for a fight. I'm sober, I'm fully awake. And I'm pissed off. Let's take this to the arena for everyone to see right now. Let us see if Sensei is just as ready to fight for the mantle of Hokage like I am at this moment, replied Tsunade before she turned to look at the old man, and saw him looking grim. Even if he had more power than her, more jutsus than her, the Sandaime knew she would be fighting for the mantle with a purpose that would outdo his own, and Tsunade would win in the end. Even if he won the fight, Hiruzen could never kill her, and his injuries would no doubt leave him crippled beyond healing. He would have to step down, and then someone else would have to take his place, with the councils no doubt moving to have Danzo take over. If not Jiraiya, Baragan wouldn't allow that in the slightest and put his own input, using lethal force, to make his own recommendation, being Tsunade, and he would no doubt win by a landslide in that regard. He was doomed to surrender to her no matter what. Take it, replied Hiruzen, with Jiraiya looking shocked. Sensei? Questioned Jiraiya, who was thrown violently against the wall, and he let out a groan since his arm was in a cast in a sling. I couldn't stop her if I tried, Jiraiya? Even if I was successful in fighting for the mantle of Hokage, it would be an empty victory. Besides, there is no one else more qualified to take up the mantle, and we both know this to be true, replied Hiruzen, with Jiraiya now struggling to get up. The councils will never accept this, Jiraiya reminded the old cage. The councils have no say in this, unless of course you change those rules since I have been gone, stated Tsunade, with Hiruzen shaking his head. They have no real say in this matter, but that won't stop them from voicing their opinion on matter and me choosing my successor, answered Hiruzen, before taking off the hat and handing it to Tsunade. Let them bitch all they want. I don't care. All I care about is my godson and fixing the village. You two have been slowly breaking after the Yondaime Hokage's death, said Tsunade while wearing the hat, and heard clapping behind her, with the source of it being Baragan. Well said, Senju Tsunade. Truly someone worthy of being Hokage. As such, I wish to reward you with a gift to ensure a long reign as this village's ruler for years to come, stated Baragan, with Tsunade frowning along with everyone else. A gift? Questioned Tsunade, with Baragan smiling at her. Yes, the gift of youth, exclaimed Baragan, as his right eye, where the one scar was located, changed from showing Naruto's natural blue eye to shining in a whitish light that locked onto Tsunade's form, and began the process of making the woman stronger again, by making her younger again, and boy did she feel it. WW, what did you do to me? Asked Tsunade, as she felt younger and stronger than she had in years, with the genjutsu over herself breaking to reveal her newly restored to its prime body. Simple. Originally, one of my powers was to age things ahead of schedule. However, it was after I devoured the yin half of Kyuubi, which was sealed unknowingly into the body of the Yondaime Hokage before his death, that I learned of the ability to reverse it. In short, I reversed your age back by 30 years, meaning you can now fight in your prime with all the knowledge and wisdom gained since that time, answered Baragan before he turned to see Shizune looking shocked at this news. She's younger than me now, thought Shizune, with her mental self crying at being the old hag between the two kunoichi. Don't think I've forgotten about you, my dear. It's only fair I bless the student with the same gift I gave the teacher, stated Baragan before he did the same for her in reversing the woman's age, but only reduced it by 10 years, and then did it to the pig just so they wouldn't ask him to do it later. That end, he was sure the pig would make a fuss, since the animal seemed as intelligent as it was pampered enough to make some kind of demand in its own unique way. Thank you, Baragan-sama, replied Shizune while bowing, Tauntaun doing the same, and the two mental versions of themselves were doing a happy dance at not being old hags of the group. He has that kind of power now, to influence life and death, thought Hiruzen and Jiraiya, while Baragan gave Tsunade a brief bow. I will leave you to handle things here for now, Tsunade-san. I know there is much to do, and I will be back again later when the transfer is official. We can talk about business at that point, since there are matters I need to address with you. About some things, stated Baragan, with Tsunade giving her own bow of respect to the former Hollow King before he was out the door, and turned to face her sensei and teammate. Be careful when dealing with him, and Naruto for that matter, Tsunade. Neither of them can be trusted, said Hiruzen with Tsunade grabbing him by the collar lifting him out of chair. I'd sooner trust him and Naruto over you. To think, Minato along with Kushina, trusted you, me, and Jiraiya to help watch over Naruto. Trust you and Jiraiya? Both broke. That I broke because you lied to me, and for what? All for some form of phantom power and control over one boy possibly being part of a prophecy that was neither clear or accurate in any way. Well, I'm not about to let you do anything else, and I'm sure as hell not going to let you try to manipulate my godson anymore. You're retired again, old man, though depending on what I'll soon learn later I might just execute you for your crimes against Konoha, and make an example out of you. As for you Jiraiya, I'll heal your arm, if it's still healable that is, but, after I fix the appendage, I'm going to break every other part of your body, and then I'll slowly heal that too. Make no mistake, pervert, you belong to me. Baragan-sama, and Naruto when he awakens, stated Tsunade with both men not liking the sound of that, but then again, they weren't meant to like it. Naruto awoke in a dark place, a dark dank place with ankle-high water, and rusty pipes above that made it look overall like a sewer. Groaning, as he got up from the ground, he shook off some of the liquid, and struggled to properly stand. Looking around in a sense of disappointment at his attempt of killing himself failing and being stuck in this place, that possibly the aftermath? Or perhaps what he experienced was just a well-desired dream, and some villagers beat the crap out of him before dumping his body in the sewer. It wouldn't be the first time that happened, and no doubt they were laughing at a job well done in putting him where he belonged like they felt they were doing with their abuse. I'll get them back one day, I swear it, thought Naruto while walking around and decided to explore his new situation since he had a feeling that he would be stuck here for a while. Walking along the watery path before him, Naruto saw red and blue pipes all around him with new shadowy purple pipes, though they seemed to be decaying at the same time. It was strange to see so many kinds of pipes being multicolored, and the boy realized this was not Konoha's sewer system since they didn't have these kind of pipes beneath the village. As he kept walking, a cold and deathly draft from one pathway suddenly caught his attention, and Naruto felt compelled to walk toward the source of it. When he arrived at the source of the draft, the Uzumaki boy stared at the massive open cage before him. Its once golden form at once was rotting away, falling apart in various places, and it clearly looked like a shadow of its former self. Look what that guy did to my seal. Pure sealing perfection that held Kyuubi for years, and in one moment the new guy ruins it, exclaimed a voice behind Naruto, who spun around to see a blonde-haired man and a red-haired woman walking toward him. Well, what did you expect, Minato-kun? Baragan-san did devour the fox, and used its power to restore himself to his true potential. You make it sound like your sealing skills are unbeatable, said the woman while giving the man a slight glare. Well, I wouldn't say unbeatable, Kushina-chan, though you do have to admit that it does rival Uzumaki sealing, answered Minato before being slugged in the face by the woman named Kushina. Uzumaki sealing will always be unmatched forever? Databane, exclaimed Kushina, as she shot her fist up into the air again, and then looked over seeing Naruto staring at them. Who are you? Asked Naruto while walking toward them. Naruto, is that you? Asked Minato, as he got up from the ground, and rubbing his sore jaw from the punch. I know who I am, but who are you? And you? Questioned Naruto with the two adults, looking at him with a frown before looking at each other, and then at him. You mean that you don't know? That you weren't told? Asked Minato curiously, while Naruto scowled. Told what? Who are you? Why are you here? Where's here? And what was in that cage? Demanded Naruto before he was bonked on the head by Kushina. Mind your manners, Naruto. I would have thought Tsunade would have taught you better manners at this point, though considering her own habits, Shizune's probably doing all the work, and being the responsible one in this family, stated Kushina with Naruto now rubbing his head and glaring at her. Who is Tsunade? And answer my questions, damn it, replied Naruto, who dodged the oncoming hit from Kushina, and kept on glaring. Wait a minute, Kushina. Naruto, who has been raising you all this time? Asked Minato while Kushina let out a huff. No one. I've been alone all my life, answered Naruto with Minato and Kushina looking at him in shock. No one? What about Tsunade and Jiraiya? Your godparent? Questioned Kushina with Naruto looking like he had been struck in the face. Godparents? I have godparents, was Naruto's response while the two adults frowned. Yes, Naruto, you have godparents? Though why they haven't raised you up until now is troubling to say the least. Is Sarutobi Hiruzen still alive? Said Minato with Naruto just nodding. Yeah, he's the Shodaime Hokage. Just who are you two, and how do you know me? Asked Naruto with the two adults looking at each other uneasily before looking back at him. Naruto, I don't know how to really put this except that we are your parents. answered Minato while pointing to himself, and Kushina with Naruto sporting multiple emotions at this point. My parents? Questioned Naruto in disbelief. Yes. My name is Uzumaki Kushina, and this is Namikaze Minato. I'm surprised you don't recognize your father since his face is on the Hokage monument for everyone to see, answered Kushina, who moved to embrace her son, but the boy jumped back, and his face was livid with anger. My father is the Shodaime Hokage. That's flat out impossible. It's not true, stated Naruto with Kushina and Minato looking shocked. Why don't you believe it, Naruto? Surely Hiruzen, Tsunade, and Jiraiya will confirm it for you if asked. Questioned Minato, but got a glare from the boy, and it shocked him to see such anger aimed at him. I did ask. You know what I got from the old man? Nothing. Just I don't know. Naruto, I'm sorry. I'll look into it, but now is not the time to ask. Or some other crap. As for those other two, I've never met them, and as to why I don't believe you, my life has been utter hell in Konoha. If I was your son, do you really think I would be hated and beaten in the place that loves you? Countered Naruto with Kushina and Minato looking shocked by this. Wait, you're not loved in Konoha. Do the people know who you are? Asked Kushina, as she moved forward again, but stopped when Naruto took several steps back and kept his glare on them. Yeah, they know who I am. I'm the demon brat, the monster, and the abomination of Konoha. I'm the kid they beat up on my birthday. I'm the kid they use for target practice. I'm the single most hated person in Konoha, exclaimed Naruto with all the anger he could muster. What? That's not possible, stated Minato, as he looked at Kushina, who was on the verge of crying, and the woman instantly moved faster than either male could track to find her hugging the stunned boy. What are you doing? Let me go. Now, said Naruto, as he struggled to get free, but Kushina held him tighter, and started to cry. My son, my baby boy, I told Minato this might happen. I told him the village wouldn't honor his dying wish. Our dying wish, stated Kushina with Naruto now stopping his struggle to get free when he heard this. What I want to know is why it wasn't honored. Why is Naruto treated so badly? Where are Jiraiya and Tsunade? How does the village know of you holding the Kyuubi? Asked Minato with Naruto's body going stiff again. Roman I hold a Kyuubi? Asked Naruto with Kushina and Minato looking at him. You mean you weren't told? Ever? Asked Kushina with Naruto shaking his head. No. I often wondered why I was hated. Beaten up within an inch of my life, I asked the Hokage countless times, and he just wouldn't answer me, answered Naruto with. His two parents frowned further. And you haven't been in contact with either of your two godparents. They are hardly unrecognizable since they are two of the legendary three Sannin, replied Minato with the boy shaking his head. No. I barely survived being at the orphanage. I was either eating rotting food or no food at all, and I was kicked out in the middle of winter during a snowstorm, answered Naruto with both his parents looking livid at this. And the Hokage allowed this? He let this happen? Asked Kushina with Naruto unable to look her in the eyes. Roman I don't know. I don't think. He's a busy man, said Naruto while scratching the back of his head. Naruto, the power behind being the Hokage of Konoha is absolute with the exception of the Fire Daimyo. You are the single most important child in Konoha and even more. So for holding the Kyuubi, something that should have been known to a select few, and two of them would have been your godparent. Why they weren't in Konoha raising you is disturbing to me, replied Minato before a cold chuckle was heard throughout the dark room. Correction, he was holding the Kyuubi, said a malevolent voice before an elderly man with scars on his face and looking like a barbarian warlord walked into the light. Who are you? Asked Naruto while Kushina moved him protectively behind her and saw Minato getting ready for a fight. I am the Kyuubi's killer and replacement and being housed in this place you call a mind. Though given how you have been abused, neglected, and taught next to nothing, it does not really surprise me that this is the outcome of what manifests for a mind these days, replied the old man while walking further towards them. Stay away from our son, commanded Minato while the figure just stopped and laughed at him. Protecting your son, your only child. How noble, how honorable. It's been a while since I've seen anyone worthy of my attention. Most humans in your position would run and abandon their child to save themselves, commented the figure while the two adults in front of him got ready for a fight. We're already dead. We're mere soul fragments left behind to act as a failsafe in the event the fox would get free while keeping all our memories intact. In the event we did interact with our son, we have nothing to lose by fighting with all our power to protect him, answered Minato with Kushina nodding in agreement. True. Under normal circumstances, you would be right in that regard. If not for the fact that my kind devour souls, human souls to be exact, countered the figure. and saw them both stiffen in fear. Human souls? Asked Minato with the figure nodding. I am a hollow. The former Hollow King to be exact. I guess you could say I was well dethroned before my near death. I'm actually quite surprised to be alive. From what I am to understand, your Shodaime Hokage, his wife, Uchiha Madara, and Kyuubi all had a hand in me arriving to your world many years ago when they all fought. I've been sealed away in the Forbidden Scroll of Seals ever since I was picked up by the Shodaime, and was until today, feeding slowly on the energy of the various Hokages that have worked in that office. You being one of them, answered the former Hollow King. And when Naruto put on your crown, replied Minato with his eyes widening. Yes, a near infinite amount of demonic energy was sent my way by the fox, who was, in fact, actually trying to expel me with his power, and he was quite surprised when it simply backfired on him. I've been going through his memories, and I must say he did not like being trapped in 3 different humans. His pride in being the strongest of the 9 Bijou, and his anger at how he felt Konoha would use him to be their weapon was what resulted in his attempt to kill the boy prior to the sealing. Hence the woman here died, being the shield against the fox's claws aimed at your only son. You have my utmost respect. Both of you, replied the former Hollow King. You still haven't told us your name, said Naruto, as he boldly took a step forward, and ignored his parents trying to force him back. The figure let out a laugh. How very true. I only gave you all a title, and it was a former one at that. My name is in fact Baragan Lausenbairn, and as I stated before, I was the former Hollow King. As for what hollows are, they are tortured lost souls, who in turn survive by eating other souls to fill hole in themselves that cannot be filled, and grow stronger for it. We also eat other forms of energy if it's consumable, and in my case I consumed Kyuubi's power along with his soul to bring myself back to peak performance. In fact, I'm significantly stronger than I was before my near death, and could destroy Aizen if given the chance, said Baragan with the last part more to himself in a near whisper. Who is Aizen? Asked Naruto with neither his parents knowing the answer. You don't need to worry about that boy. In fact, from what I've seen from the fox's own memories of this seal, and its purpose, you have little worry about as of right now in regards to your life, answered Baragan with Naruto Kushina and Minato frowning. In what way? Asked Minato cautiously while wondering how the former Hollow King was able to understand his complex sealing method. Simply put, because of this seal's overall purpose and design, I am not only going to be the fox's replacement in being your tenant, I am also going to become you, answered Baragan with Naruto looking shocked. Wait, what? Questioned Naruto while both his parents were stunned by this. The purpose of this seal was to do more than just hold a bijou within your body. It was designed to trickle its chakra, as you call the energy of this world, into your own system and purify it so your own reserves would in fact grow to immense proportions. Over time, the seal your father made would have allowed your body to absorb the fox completely into your body, and the two of you would have in fact merged, with your mind being the dominant one. Now that I have effectively taken his place in every shape and form, I will now merge with you, dear boy, answered Baragan with Naruto looking floored by this while Minato felt the same way. Kushina was smiling at her husband, but her smile did not reach her eyes, and the smile was the kind that made many men, mainly Nara clan men, try to run away from. Such a woman with that smile? They never do get very far. Minato-kun, you didn't tell me that was part of the seal design when you were preparing it to seal Kyuubi on our son. Why is that? Asked Kushina with Minato, laughing a very nervous laugh. Oh well, you see, I thought that with Kyuubi merged with Naruto would help the boy in the future when he was fully grown, and a strong capable shinobi of Konoha, answered Minato while his wife approached him in a menacing way, as she was cracking her knuckles in a way that a certain blonde woman would do when she encountered a pervert in the hot springs, and turn him possibly into a half-demon fox in the process. Maybe all demon? Asked Kushina with Minato backing up with his hands up to stay off a big beating. Well, in theory it might have been possible. In my defense, I was rushing a bit with the fox's rampage and rescuing Naruto from Madara, answered Minato in a pleading tone. Madara? As in Uchiha Madara? Asked Baragan with the two adults in front of him, turning their heads to look at him. Yeah? Why? Asked Minato seriously while ignoring his wife's ever-doom-giving form still looming over him. No reason. Please continue, answered Baragan while he was looking at the various memories still being sorted through him regarding the Uchiha. So, I become you, or do you become me? Asked Naruto while ignoring his mother, beating the crap out of his father. As I said before to you, child, we merge into one being, but your own mind will be the dominant one, and therefore you are the one in control. I thought you would understand that fact, since it's easy enough to figure out. said Baragan with Naruto frowning at him. I do understand. It's just that, for some reason I'm having trouble understanding things. I always did when growing up, answered Naruto while wincing slightly from a pain he was feeling within his brain. Baragan felt it too and frowned slightly since it was clear this was not normal. It was clear this problem the boy was having within his mind in terms mental capabilities was something that shouldn't be happening to the boy at all. Using his own sensory-based power known to all Rancor as Pesquisa, Baragan easily tracked the problem to another section of the boy's mind, and located the source of it, being another seal surrounding the ability for Naruto to intake knowledge with a door shut while wrapped tightly in chains. It was keeping that door shut with little room for anything to properly get through it, and upon further inspection of the boy's mind the former Hollow King found more. It seemed there were other parts of Naruto that were chained and locked tightly in place with the purpose of staying locked away forever. Wait here, child, ordered Baragan before he used Tsunade to vanish from sight and soon found himself standing in front of the various doors chained and locked heavily in place to prevent them from being opened. Frowning at the 3 doors in front of him, which read Mind Hair and aggressive anger, the former Hollow King focused his power to age object to make the chains rot. Sure enough, the chains and the locks began rotting away before they were destroyed without a trace of them left. With the restraints on the doors gone, they all opened up one by one, and only when hearing Naruto's crying of pain did Baragan use Tsunade to get back to him. Naruto, what did you do, Baragan? Demanded Minato while Kushina held her son and saw him going through changes. Your son had more than the Kyuubi sealed inside of him. I have found multiple doors pertaining to the boy being locked heavily with chains. They were parts of him that had been sealed away to weaken and suppress his potential. Not to mention, it was preventing the boy from ever thinking of retaliating against those fools in his village that would hurt him physically or mentally, answered Baragan while seeing Naruto's hair change from blonde to red and his eyes while in pain showed a sense of sharpness in understanding things around him. Baragan also saw there was anger in those eyes. Lots of anger. I hate them, whispered Naruto furiously while Kushina held him tight. Naruto, said Kushina while feeling her son shaking now with more rage in his body than that of pain. I hate them. They beat me, poisoned me, starved me, and tried to kill me multiple times while those above I thought were trustworthy left me to rot. Well, I'm not going to let them win. I'm going to fight them with all my being and make them pay, exclaimed Naruto furiously while Kushina held him tightly. And I'll help you for as long as I'm here, my son, answered Kushina while her son now looked up to stare with calculating eyes. You mean it? Asked Naruto with Kushina crying harder. Look into my eyes, Naruto. You mean more to me than this village ever could. I love you, my most precious of treasures. I gave my life to save you from Kyuubi's claws so that you could live. I would do it again, and more if I could, so while I'm here I will help you learn what you were denied by those in Konoha. Everything I know, I will teach you, and help ensure you're the most power shinobi ever, whispered Kushina into his ear, and Naruto closed his eyes while tears left his eyes. You promise? Asked Naruto with Kushina nodding. Of course, and Uzumaki always keeps their promises, answered Kushina while Naruto smiled at her and returned the embrace she was giving him. Hey, what about me? Can I get in on this promise? I may not be an Uzumaki like your mother here, but I would like to think a Namikaze can keep a promise too, stated Minato walking over to them and hugged them too. Yes you can, replied Naruto, as he held onto them tightly, his tears flowing freely, and the pain of never knowing his parents while wondering if they ever loved him had been washed away. As touching as this moment is, we do have a considerable problem since you two were not meant to linger in his mind for long, and thus you will leave him eventually. The only reason you haven't left is because time moves differently here than it does in the outside world. You have actually been sustaining yourself here longer than usual due to the fact Naruto is unconscious within his own mind and thus focusing all his mental energies here that have kept you alive. If we are to have any chance of the two of you staying here for the need to time to teach the boy, I will have to take over and assert authority over the fools in this village. Though time is running short since even now, a few seconds here is minutes outside, and I'm currently keeping a large number of your village's shinobi in the surrounding at bay by using my power to cover the boy's body like a shield. As it stands, the shinobi are waiting for the large pillar of energy I have released to die down, said Baragan while watching this drama scene play out before him. They're not my shinobi? Not anymore. They betrayed my trust. They betrayed my wife. They betrayed my son. They betrayed the principles of the leaf in which this village was founded on, remarked Minato bitterly with the man looking at Baragan, who nodded in agreement, and walked toward them while summoning a cane manifest into his right hand in the process. I'm going to kill them, all of them. I don't care if I'm in the bingo book. I don't care if I'm feared or hated for all time for destroyed Konoha. It will all be worth it to watch them all die slowly, exclaimed Naruto, as he tried to move, but stopped when his mind began to throb, and fell to his knees again. Easy boy. You are not ready for that just yet? 12 years worth of having your potential suppressed and removed is finally taking hold of you, while information that would have stumped your brain is now clicking into place. Furthermore, you will need to learn here what your parents are capable of teaching you what they know, and there is also the matter of my memories you will be receiving from here on out while we merge together, reminded Baragan while he stood in front of the boy and his parents. What do you propose then, Baragan-sama? Asked Minato while seeing the old man give him a smile. Simple. I take charge of things until the boy is ready to awaken, and we properly merge together as one being, answered Baragan with Minato and Kushina looking at each other while Naruto just stared into the former Espada's eyes. Agreed, was Naruto's reply. Wait, Naruto, what's the catch? Questioned Minato with Baragan shaking his head. No catch. The two of us are going to get a new lease on life when we merge together, my dear boy. Strangely enough, that will only happen by our lives merging together, and we'll be starting off fresh with a clean slate. When we merge, all my knowledge, powers, and abilities I had before my death will be yours to command in the span of, say, 3 to 4 months depending on the absorption process. In short, you will become my heir to the throne of death. As I was once the former Hollow King, you will be the Hollow Prince, and like me you will be ruler over all things related to death itself, answered Baragan with Naruto nodding since his mind was allowing him to understand this. And those that betrayed my family, the Tsunade Hokage, my godparents, the leaf itself, questioned Naruto with Baragan smirking at him. They will pay, all in due time, whether by my hands all yours. The point will be made not to mess with either of us, and understand that a price must be paid for their treachery, answered Baragan with the boy nodding in agreement with his parents doing the same. There would be hell to pay for Konoha's betrayal. Konoha present day. Baragan awoke from his slumber, or rather, Naruto's body did, since it needed rest, just like any other 12-year-old, and the former Espada had made sure to exercise it properly. The boy was still growing, so even with the body being physically enhanced beyond all normal means, it would be foolish of him to not give it the proper exercise required to keep everything in tip-top shape, and show any form of weakness. Baragan wouldn't tolerate it, and neither would his heir. After going through his now becoming usual morning physical routine to keep it in top shape, the former Espada in a child's body headed out for the day to inspect Konoha, and see what else was going on in this cesspool of sorts that needed to be addressed. Tsunade was back, which was a plus for Naruto since the woman had no idea of the boy being alive until 2 days ago, and even now the newly minted 5th Hokage was cleaning house. The academy had lost several of their instructors, responsible for the sabotaging of Naruto and the other students in his class. They were taken to Ibiki, who had no problem unleashing his skills on all of the morons that would cripple the next generation in their own way, and risk the leaf becoming too weak to fight back possibly stronger enemies. Each academy instructor had eventually confessed not only the sabotaging, but that they did it for money, being paid by the councils to further Uchiha Sasuke's belief of him being a true prodigy, and keep the boy loyal to Konoha in the belief he could be a great shinobi thanks to their tutelage. The Sandaime also knew of this and approved of the sabotage, provided that it didn't go too far, and that each of the students had a fair chance of graduating the exam before being judged by their Jounin sensei during the real test. Insulting and stupid to say the least, the academy itself was a joke to Tsunade, as she saw the curriculum being used by them overall, and nearly threw her desk out the window in frustration at what was taken out of the programs. All that was left to teach these kids was history of Konoha, the basic jutsus used by any novice, and the academy's standard taijutsu. What about elemental affinities? How about the study kenjutsu? Different weapons for different shinobi. There wasn't even a mention of medical ninjutsu being capable of saving lives of injured comrades. If this is how things were going since I've been gone, then the leaf is in bigger trouble than I thought, and the fact sensei let him happen concerns me. What was he thinking? Thought Tsunade, as she sighed while looking over more of the damage the Tsunade Hokage caused, and wanted to smash his face in, if it wasn't already, and he was at the hospital with Jiraiya with the two healing in full body casts. How are things? Asked Baragan after using Sunito to enter her office thanks to the open window. Bad? Everything sensei did since taking office again after the Yondaime died was just one bad decision after another. It's like he purposely weakened Konoha, but for what I don't know, answered Tsunade with Baragan nodding. Did Jiraiya tell you anything about the account he and Hiruzen made to pilfer? Money from the Uzumaki and Namikaze accounts? Asked Baragan with Tsunade shaking her head. No. He wouldn't answer me. The man just looked away with the scowl on his face like I did something horrible in revealing that to the world. Like some big secret that shouldn't be made public was brought to light. Of course by that point I was upset with him to no end that I broke his jaw, which I just finished healing with a solid punch, and told him that I would get answers no matter what. Replied Tsunade with Baragan nodding. The account in question had quite the sum of money deposited in it from the pilfering, plus the interest it was given to grow made it even larger, and could nearly buy a whole village with it, remarked Baragan with the woman nodding, before frowning. Wait a minute. The total number in the account was, according to the bank manager, had grown to the sum of 3,050,000,000 ryo, stated Tsunade with Baragan nodding. That was with the interest from the years it sat growing in secret under everyone's noses like it was some kind of nest egg of theirs, remarked Baragan, with Tsunade nodding, but the frown didn't leave, and pulled up some information. She found that was in regards to land rights possibly being purchased. There is only one place where a sum of money that large could and would be used when it comes to purchasing something on a massive scale. My former sensei was going to buy land that once belonged to Whirlpool Country, answered Tsunade with Baragan now frowning before she handed him the information. His mother's homeland and your grandmother's too? But why buy it? Said Baragan, with Tsunade sighing. After Whirlpool fell during the Second Shinobi War, it was believed with proof that there were other Uzumaki clan members who had survived the fall, and would one day come back to reclaim the land when the time came. The Fire Daimyo was able to politically use the alliance Fire Country had with Whirlpool to gain some form of right to the land, but not entirely, since an Uzumaki could reclaim it for free, regardless if the land was bought by another country, and it was forbidden for anyone to remove anything there unless with permission from an Uzumaki without coercion from someone else, answered Tsunade with the former Espada in front of her, narrowing his eyes. Unless someone like the Hokage bought the land using money in an account made using money from the Uzumaki account, and an overeager naive teenager for an Uzumaki that was currently living in Konoha changed things. One who was curious about his family history on his mother's side, and wanted to know more about it. All he had to do was give permission, and the payment would just further enforce the claim over anyone else before the rights to such land was given to Fire Country, stated Baragan with Tsunade looking a bit confused. Why not ask me? I'm an Uzumaki on my mother's side, questioned Tsunade with a former Hollow King looking her right in the eye. Could you surrender your home to Fire Country? Willingly. Let Shinobi from the leaf rape and pillage the treasures that lay buried there. The knowledge of Uzumaki, seals, the jutsus, and the natural resources that surrounded the island, asked Baragan with the female Hokage shaking her head. No, not when you mention it like that. I would have probably thought about the offer if asked, but in the end, I would have said no, and let the past stay respectfully buried, said Tsunade with Baragan nodding. Hence why you weren't asked. But if Naruto had been molded in the way Jiraiya and Hiruzen wanted, remarked Baragan, so the unfinished sentence could in fact finish itself in Tsunade's mind, he would have unknowingly given Konoha and Fire Country just about everything that belonged to him before they made sure it was never seen by him, finished Tsunade, with the former Hollow King nodding while the woman seethed in anger. Exactly. They were intending to take what did not belong to them while using someone who could take it because it did belong to him. Only when he moved to take it, those that were with him would ensure the boy never had it, and lied to make Naruto believe there was nothing there to take, added Baragan with Tsunade's anger rising while trying to keep it in check due to her guest helping and learning the truth. Thank you for helping fill in the blanks on this matter, Baragan-sama. I will take the proper steps to ensure no one tries this again, replied Tsunade with Baragan nodding and taking his leave again, before stopping at the window. Also, in addition to this conspiracy against Naruto, I suspect the Fire Daimyo is also involved in it too, since he would gain the most from such a deal, and no one could prove he had a hand in the machinations required to make it happen. By the time any questions or inquiries were to come up, Hiruzen would have been dead, and Jiraiya getting there within a few years, added Baragan with Tsunade's eyes widening in surprise, and knew that was true. The natural resources within Whirlpool would make Fire Country financially richer than it had been in years, and the Fire Daimyo would be able to take credit for his country's newly found prosperity. The Fire Daimyo would have the most to gain from such a thing with such financial stake in the matter, not to mention that her former sensei and Jiraiya could only set their plan in motion with the Fire Daimyo's approval, and the Fire Daimyo would consider what happened to be completely legal on his end, while denying anything illegal happened under his watch, said Tsunade with Baragan nodding. He will eventually be dealt with in time, remarked Baragan before he walked out of the room. Naruto's mindscape? Naruto smiled while looking around within his mind, as it was no longer a sewer-like when he first entered it, and walked on white sand instead of water. There were no longer pipes of all different shapes, sizes, and colors and tight constricting places like last time. Now there was only wide open space, with a wide open night sky, stars high in the air, and a shining moon above that was the only source of light in this dark place, an exact replica of Hueco Mundo? The smile left him quickly though, as a look of concentration replaced it, and like Baragan he too had a shadowy black cane with a fox's head in his left hand. Appearing behind him was his mother, a sword in hand, meant to slash him diagonally down the back, and tear through his flesh. Dodging the attack, Naruto moved left, right, down, up, shift more to the right, leap back using a handstand before spinning to face her, and then blocked the last attempt with his cane. Holding his cane steady, Naruto felt his father's presence behind him, a kunai in hand, currently at the ready to stab him in the back of the head, and moved his head away to prevent the weapon from killing him. Grabbing the arm with his free one, Naruto gave a squeeze until Minato had no choice but to let the weapon fall with his limb, at risk of being broken, and kicked the fallen kunai at his mother. Kushina quickly jumped away to prevent the weapon from striking her in the chest and pierce her heart before charging again with Naruto using Tsunade to vanish from sight. Damn it Naruto, stop using that move, exclaimed Minato since his son used it easily to dodge his parents' attacks with Kushina colliding into him in the process. But it's so fun to use it. Besides, you use your own technique that made you famous in the last Shinobi War. It's only fair, countered Naruto with a smile on his face. He's got you there Minato-kun, added Kushina while Minato grumbled. You're only saying that because he has red hair like you, countered Minato who got punched in the jaw for that, and earned Kushina's wrath. Don't denounce people with red hair. Red hair is the best hair color ever. Databane, exclaimed Kushina while Naruto smirked at seeing his father whimper in pain from the punch to the face. Enjoying things I take it? Asked Baragan, as he appeared before them, and saw the boy nod his head. I sure am Grandpa Baragan, answered Naruto with Baragan smirking at him. Smart ass Gaki. Still, in a way it does make sense you would call me that. How goes your training in understanding my techniques, and those of your parents? Questioned Baragan with Naruto shooting a bala through the sandy dunes of this fake version of Hueco Mundo. Everything is going well. I still have a ways to go though. So much to learn here, and then practice in the real world when I take control. How's life outside? Replied Naruto with Baragan informing him and his parents of what has happened so far. I knew Tsunade didn't willingly abandon my son. Take that Minato-kun. Databane, exclaimed Kushina happily while Minato groaned at his wife being right. Regardless, I'm disturbed by this news of the Hiruzen and Jiraiya conspiring with the Fire Daimyo to acquire Whirlpool for the treasures there, remarked Minato with his wife's happy mood shifting from happy to angry with her hair moving around wildly. I'll kill them. Let me at them. Let me at them, exclaimed Kushina with Minato having to restrain his wife before she got too out of control. As for the arranged marriages, you have Inuzuka Hana, Hyuga Hinata, and Yamanaka. I know to be your future wives. If any other potential women catch your interest will be up to you to court after we've merged into one entity, remarked Baragan with Naruto looking surprised while Kushina squealed with joy. Yes, I'm one step closer to having lots and lots of grandchildren. Databane, exclaimed Kushina while Minato just looked at her with a sweat drop running down his head while laughing nervously. Sorry about this. Even when she was pregnant with Naruto, Kushina-chan was thinking he was a boy, and wondering how many girls would chase after him. She kept saying he would grow up to be a handsome boy, or overall a heartthrob with every girl wanting to marry him, replied Minato with Naruto shaking his head while Baragan snorted in amusement. Women would always be strange to them no matter what. Real world with the rookies? Come on you maggots, move it, move it, move it, exclaimed Anko, as she watched the group running around her obstacle course she created with the Hokage's approval, and saw how each of the rookie 9 that would have qualified to take the official graduation test that their Jounin senseis would give them were struggling to get through it. Were the academy standards this low that they couldn't go through her version of an obstacle course? It wasn't like she overdid things here and made it too challenging, right? Okay. So maybe the multiple rings of fire they had to jump through, the buzzsaws that came out of the floor if you stepped on one of the multiple hidden switches, and the large pit of spikes were a bit much. Maybe. Still, did they have to glare at her when she decided to unleash one of her larger, horse-sized snakes on them before they started running, and trying to get away from being devoured by it? Was she that cruel and sadistic? In one word to sum up the answer to her own question, absolutely. She's a sadistic BBH. I think I am GG going to puke, remarked Kiba, as he was panting, and taking this brief moment to crouch slightly with his hands on his knees to catch his breath after finally completing the course with a few others. Why is she running us ragged like this? Asked Dino, since she wasn't expecting this. When they were being given the crash course in their shinobi training, I believe she wants our bodies to be at peak performance since the academy didn't do that much in regards to physical endurance training, answered Shino, but even his stoic form was covered in sweat, and it showed on his trench coat if only slightly. I can't do all that at home when I train, why do it here? Challenged Kiba, now on his ass, and felt his breath get caught in his throat when he sensed the looming figure having moved to hover behind him. Because all of your parents want to make sure you get the maximum amount of physical training. Also, I had a talk with your mom last night about you slacking off at home, and she knows for a fact that a certain run I'm talking to here hasn't been training that hard in his clan style, replied Anko in a sweet yet evil voice while Kiba laughed nervously at her cruel-looking eyes. I'm pacing myself, answered Kiba with Anko picking him up by his jacket. Wrong answer, Gaki. Do the course over again? If you die, remember it's not my fault. You can't cut it. And considering your sister is going to eventually marry, the family line isn't going to be lost, exclaimed Anko, as she threw him to the start of the course, and heard him let out a dog-like whine before growling at the mention of his sister's future marriage. When I see Naruto Baka, I'm going to kick his ass, and see to it that all his marriages are cancelled, thought Kiba angrily while using it to run through the obstacle course again. So Hana is going to marry Naruto? Asked Shikamaru after taking a bottle of water and drinking some of it before pouring it on his head. From what I've heard from my parents, Ino here and Hinata are in an arranged marriage with Naruto-san, answered Shino with Ino frowning and Hinata blushing at the mention of her future marriage to Naruto. Of course it was hard to tell since she was panting heavily too from running through the obstacle course. Well, I don't like it. If I'm going to be an arranged marriage with anyone, it should be Sasuke-kun, and not Naruto Baka, answered Ino finally while Hinata frowned while Sakura collapsed near them by this point. You tell them, Ino pig, replied Sakura, though in truth she was glad Ino was out of the running and getting to be with Sasuke, as well as most of the other girls since they gave up earlier when Anko first introduced the obstacle course. Shut up, forehead. The point is, being married to Naruto Baka will be painful and make me want to kill myself. Why anyone would want to be married to him and live a pathetic life with him is beyond me, remarked Ino while Hinata scowled now and felt her hands wants to ball up into fists to slug the girl. Perhaps you should look in the mirror first before judging others, little girl, remarked Anko while walking up to the girl. What do you mean? Questioned Ino with Anko shaking her head at her. You want to talk about painful? About Naruto? That Gaki's life has been anything but pleasant, and I should know since I've seen it. Didn't your father tell you the boy's history and past in connection to how he suffered every day since he was born? Questioned Anko with Ino looking away. He did. I just blocked him out for the most part. It's kind of hard to listen to. And when he mentions I'm going to marry to the Baka, answered Ino before flinching under the glare from Anko and probably Hinata's too if she focused on the Hyuga girl next. So you blocked out the part where your father explained how Naruto was beaten within an inch of his life, how he was stabbed with swords, kunai, shuriken and used for jutsu testing against his will, how he had to eat out of garbage cans, eat rotten food, and in some cases no food at all. Questioned Anko with Ino looking away further in shame while the other rookies heard this and were listening intently. The Baka recovered? Did he? The Kyuubi just healed his injuries anyway, so what? Does it matter? Asked Sakura while getting involved in this conversation. Just because he healed physically doesn't mean there weren't mental scars, you dumb pink-haired bitch. Not only was Naruto hurt in all those ways growing up, he was also told his parents didn't want him, and that they abandoned him because he was a monster. How would you feel growing up and hear that from just about everyone in the village? It's a miracle the Gaki lived this long without killing himself sooner. Kami knows he probably has considered several ways to kill himself, but he shot them down because he knew they would probably fail, and believed that the object, sealed in the forbidden scroll of sealing as his only way out in what he believed was a guarantee that he would die. Exclaimed Anko with Sakura moving away from the angry woman while Ino was looking ashamed. Well, he is a monster. Sakura shot back before Anko moved over to the pink-haired girl now crawling backward away from her, and stomped on little girl's stomach. Listen here, brat. You think your world is so perfect, that your parents are perfect. Let me tell you something about your parents. They are the ones who went to the Shodaime Hokage and bitched about the academy being too hard for little girls like you. They felt that the innocence of their little pink-haired princess and by extension every other child going to the academy. They asked that the standards at the academy get lower to the point where even the fangirls like you and the other wretches that want to get into the Uchiha's pants have a very small, remote slim chance of passing. Trust me, brat, if you were in my class at the academy you wouldn't have made it halfway through the year and quit being a shinobi altogether. You lack the needed stamina, the necessary training, and your only real strength is book smarts that don't really help you out in the field. They might in a library, but in being a shinobi. And don't tell me that Suzume's flower class and how to act like proper woman counts, since it doesn't, answered Anko, while she glared at the pink-haired girl. And like Naruto Baka would have done any better, challenged Sakura weakly with Anko barking out a laugh. Done better. The kid would have outshined everyone. But you'll see that soon. Enough when the kid awakens and is out in the field. Personally, I can't wait to see how badass he can be and make his enemies run away after soiling themselves, remarked Anko while letting out a giggle of joy at the idea of seeing Naruto make his enemies do that. She's scary? Like my mom, whispered Shikamaru to Chaji. I knew that before we ran the obstacle course, whispered Chaji while wishing he could eat some chips right now. Keeping them on their toes, I see, remarked Baragan, as he had used Tsunade to arrive at this training area where Anko was training the rookies to the point of puking the food they ate 3 days ago out? Yep, you must be Baragan-sama given the mature way you are addressing me, said Anko with Baragan smirking despite the smirk was made using Naruto's face. Thank you, my dear. It's always nice to meet a woman with perceptive eyes, ears, and the brains to know who they addressing, replied Baragan with a slight bow of his head to show his respect to her. Flattery will get you and Naruto nowhere. At least not until Naruto is older and he talks the same way as you, countered Anko before giggling, and Baragan let out a chuckle of his own. I'll be sure to tell him no, or at least mentally remember that so he can later, when we merge into one being, replied Baragan with a smirk on his face. He's still a loser, remarked Sasuke, which got everyone to look at him, and most of the faces from these people were looking at him with disgust. Care to repeat that, Uchiha? Questioned Baragan while looking at the boy like he was a worm that deserved to be crushed beneath his boot. You heard me, freak. Without you, the loser you inhabit would stay a loser, and be a weak nobody like everyone in the village believes if true. The only reason they don't now is because you are threatening to kill them with your freakish powers, challenged Sasuke with Baragan not looking pleased by the Uchiha's words. Tough talk coming from the boy who had everything handed to him early on in life. All the academy instructors basically handed you everything except your shinobi headband before you even took your first test. They bow to your every whim simply because you are the last Uchiha, and your Sharingan is supposed to be the special bloodline that should be feared. I see it as a cheat, a crutch, a bloodline for those seeking the easy path in life without any desire to work hard for what they want, countered Baragan with Sasuke seething at his words. I'm an Uchiha, the elite of this village. They should give me everything I desire, simply because my eyes and bloodline are the future of this village. Not you, and that no-class orphan fool who deserves to die with his deadbeat father and whore for a mother. I bet the dead last isn't even the Yandame's son, and that bitch whored herself throughout Konoha just to stay in this village, exclaimed Sasuke before Baragan used Tsunade and appeared in front of the Uchiha before striking the boy in the chest with an open palm strike that sent the victim of the simple strike bouncing violently multiple times into a tree. You speak out of place, boy, replied Baragan in a dangerous tone, and walked over to the downed Uchiha before he was surrounded by blank-masked Danbu. Step away from the Uchiha, commanded the captain of the group. And who are you to command me? Questioned Baragan while ignoring the blade at the boy's throat he was currently possessing. We protect the last Uchiha from any and all threats. You are a threat to him if you do one more act of violence toward him, answered the Anbu captain while his unit helped the Uchiha to his feet. What are you idiots waiting for? As the last Uchiha of Konoha, I order you to kill him. Kill him now, commanded Sasuke with blood running down the side of his mouth, and glaring hatefully at the former Hollow King. They can try, boy, and they will fail, challenged Baragan with a cruel smile on his face. For the good of Konoha, die monster, exclaimed the Anbu captain while ignoring the shout of protest from the Hyuga girl, or the fact she had moved to stop them, only to be shocked when the blade at the boy's throat broke into pieces from the attempt to slice him open at the neck from ear to ear. Foolish prideful humans, said Baragan furiously at their continued arrogance and let his spiritual pressure cover the entire area to make everyone fall to their knees with their lives flashing before their eyes. What is this? Thought Sasuke, as he looked up at Naruto's form, and the eyes of the boy he hated for having all this power from this entity that favored the now red-haired Uzumaki, only to see the face shift rapidly before him into looking like a skull with a crown and back with the angry eyes clearly showing the former Hollow King's displeasure. You are an arrogant child? You believe yourself invincible with your so-called power that is your bloodline? These foolish shinobi that defend you are worms just like those on the councils that believe your Sharingan is a gift from some great deity. They sit in their little cradle of power, stomping their fists, beating their chests, all the while trying to use some invisible authority they all believe is there in order to get command over someone like me. In truth, they would have better luck making a rat dance for cheese, or make a cat move with a cheap toy. I've seen the boys' memories of you, walking around like you own this village, because of the loss of your pathetic family, and acting like the entire world itself owes you everything. You are owed nothing, Uchiha Sasuke? Some may tell you otherwise, but they only say it to inflate your ego to work for them, and expect favors be returned on your end once you've been placed in a position of power. You need to be reminded of the order of things, and that you are not the elite shinobi. Everyone in this village has practically proclaimed you to be despite no outside experience whatsoever on your part, stated Baragan before he smacked Sasuke in the face multiple times in the face with the end of his cane 6 times, 3 sides per cheek with what seemed like crude whisker marks in the form of cuts and bruises. It was after the 6th strike to the Uchiha's face that the spiritual pressure died away, and Baragan turned to walk over to Hyuga Hinata before he gently helping the girl up to her now shaky legs. She held on to him for a long moment, her breath catching up with her during that time, and slightly blushing at the physical contact while Hinata knew that the being possessing Naruto was in control, even if the feeling of shame at failing to stand at the time of his anger being released upon the Uchiha and his supporters. I am sorry. I must seem so weak to you, Baragan-sama. I don't think I'm truly strong enough to be worthy of being called Naruto's future wife, whispered Hinata, while the former Espada let out a chuckle. My dear, you showed a great deal of loyalty to the boy when you called out like that to when the Anbu made his attempt at slicing Naruto's throat, even moving toward the danger despite the risks involved. That takes courage. As for falling down to the ground with everyone else, it was to be expected considering my power. And eventually Naruto's power will be beyond anything you have ever felt before. Hopefully, as time passes while you are in close contact with Naruto in the near future, you will develop some form of resistance to it, and be able to stand tall in the face of such power when it is unleashed, replied Baragan gently with, seeing Hinata nod while shying away at his words since she still didn't feel worthy of being Naruto's future wife. As for the shinobi behind him, they had managed to stand with weapons drawn, and were about to attack when Tsunade appeared with her own Anbu right behind her. What the hell is going on here? Demanded Tsunade since she had sensed the power that Baragan had unleashed from the tower, and knew it spelled trouble. This creature in Uzumaki Naruto hurt the last Uchiha? We were protecting the boy from harm, answered the Anbu captain with the blank Anbu mask on his face. Oh really? Who ordered you to be the Uchiha brat's bodyguards? I certainly didn't. None of my Anbu wore those masks, so take them off now so I can identify you, commanded Tsunade with none of them obeying, and were instead moving slightly back to retreat. Bala, said Baragan as he blew the Anbu captain's leg out before he used Sunito to stand on the screaming man's chest to prevent any of his comrades from trying to silence him. Wow, I barely saw it, thought Anko while feeling a bit turned on by the sudden use of violence. Run away and you join this one on the ground only without either of your legs too. Stand on when I get through with you. Literally, stated Baragan with the Anbu in front of him looking at each other before they surrendered one by one, and Tsunade's Anbu had them restrained. Uchiha Sasuke had no intention of letting this insult slide. Throughout his whole life, Sasuke had been in the shadow of his brother, trying to fight his way to the level Itachi was at so he could kill the man and avenge his family. Now this loser, who was supposed to be dead last among the other students at the academy, has this newfound power, and using it against him. Even worse, the people in the village, the councils, and even the Shodaime Hokage himself had been restrained by the freak in the dead last's body, with the Senju for a Hokage backing him. Everything seemed to shift in a way that didn't suit the Uchiha in the slightest, and the throbbing painful strikes to his face just enforced the belief that something had to be done about this situation. This shift in his life had to be changed back. The Shodaime needed to come back, the authoritative power of the councils had to come back, and the position of Sasuke himself being the true elite of Konoha had to come back. The only way to do that was to kill the body of Uzumaki Naruto, and thus kill the entity that possessed him while killing the dead last two in the process. Grabbing the Tanto closest to him, Sasuke moved to stab Naruto's face in the belief that because he had scars there that it was somehow the weakest part, and that was the place to strike. However, before Sasuke could even have a chance of getting the Blade close enough, Hyuga Hinata had flanked him from behind, her being the closest shinobi to possibly do anything, and struck the Uchiha with a gentle fist. Jab along the neck to induce temporary paralysis, so the shy girl's got a fire in her after all. Not bad? With the proper sensei, she could be quite the juggernaut herself, and prove all those snooty Hyuga members in her clan wrong, thought Anko, as she had a clear view of Hinata moving around Sasuke when he first grabbed the weapon, and poised to strike with deadly precision when the Uchiha was angling the blade to stab Naruto in the face. For someone who believes they aren't strong enough to be Naruto's wife in the future, you are doing a good job in disproving that belief, remarked Baragan with a smirk on his Naruto's face, while Hinata herself found herself focusing on what she had done with the reality of the situation catching up to her. I reacted on instinct. I saw what he was planning to do with the weapon and I felt like I just had to move, exclaimed Hinata with Tsunade looking impressed, while the other rookies were shocked she could move like that at all. Good instincts then, remarked Baragan with Hinata blushing under his praise, while wondering if Naruto would think the same thing. That and I think she wants to prove herself worthy of being Naruto-kun's wife. Maybe scare away any of the competition, or dominate it so they know who is the head female the Gaki's life, added Anko with Hinata letting out an eep, and blushing heavier. Enough Anko. Hinata, I want you to come to my office later to talk about this. After I finish handling this mess with these rogue Anbu, and the Uchiha here, said Tsunade, as she left with her own Anbu, who were taking away those that surrendered, and she was personally dragging the Uchiha by his shirt through the ground to the Hokage tower? Well, that was certainly interesting, remarked Baragan with a chuckle before he was gone via Tsunade. Monstrous freak of nature, mumbled Kiba before he was suddenly struck in the face by Hinata with a harsh open palm jab. Don't call him that, exclaimed Hinata while everyone was looking at her like she had grown two heads and a fox tail. Since when did the shy girl suddenly not, well, act so shy? What? He is a monstrous freak of nature? Did you see him? What he did? What he could do to all of us in an instant if we get out of line. Naruto will be the same way. He'll be a tyrant oppressing us with his power and won't care about how we feel, challenged Kiba with Hinata looking livid for the first time in her life, and in a way it was frightening for the girl to feel like this. It was like a fire had suddenly risen in her that screamed to act in Baragan's end. In the long run of things, Naruto's defense, hadn't the persecution gone on long enough? It was the same thing over and over again since her childhood growing up. While walking around Konoha, people whispering cruel things about Naruto, how they bragged about hurting him the other day, or how they witnessed it like it was their favorite pastime, how they had rewarded their kids for hurting him, and told their kids to their friends to do the same. And now, because Naruto was going to have the preverbal fangs and claws to fight back against these abusers, a few of them were speaking out on how it was unfair. A tyrant to those that were tyrannical to him, countered Hinata with Kiba, spitting out some blood in his mouth. He deserved every bit of it. If my mother had adopted him into our clan, I would have turned that loser into a stuffed chew toy, exclaimed Kiba with Hinata finding herself moving to slug him, but was stopped by Shino, and Anko herself was between them. Okay, easy you two. Hinata, go see the Hokage's assistant and cool off with her while you're at it. The rest of you can go home with the exception of the mutt. Here, I'm taking him to see his mother and discuss what he just said here, commanded Anko, as she summoned a snake from her sleeve and wrapped it around Kiba to prevent him from running away. Don't need to tell me twice, mumbled Shikamaru, but the look Anko gave him seemed to double his speed in leaving with Chaji right behind him, and Ino walking away. With Shino per the Aburame's request that they talk further about the situation she had with Naruto. The Aburame clan was filled with masters of logic, and the Aburame heir also knew that helping Ino understand things would go a long way in her accepting Naruto as the end result. It would also help Naruto in terms of healing emotional scars from the past, and thus make the boy that would be a potential shinobi comrade less likely to lash out at them with his deathly powers. Can we talk about this? Asked Kiba in nervous tone. Sure, we can talk about this after I bring you to your mother and explain what you said about Baragan-sama and by extension Naruto-kan too, answered Anko, sweetly in a way that would make all Nara men shudder in fear since it would remind them of the women in their clan home. All it made Kiba do is struggle further so he could get away from Anko and hopefully get to his mother first to tell his side of things in the hopes his mother would take his side over the crazy snake using special jounin. Alas, for the Inozuka heir, his struggles were in vain, and were a total failure.